All right, good evening. I would now like to bring the regular evening meeting of the Township of Langley Council to order, and we have some very special guests here, and in honor of that, I want to say that we are situated on the traditional territories of the Kwantlen, Katzie, Matsqui, and Semiahmoo First Nations. Thank you very much for being here. And so we have a very fun-filled, packed agenda with some interesting items on the agenda to start with, and so we'll get underway. The first item is I'm going to need a motion to adopt and receive the agenda items. Councillor Davis, second by Councillor Arneson. And a show of hands, all those in favour? Opposed, and that carries. At this time, I would like to just talk about a day of mourning that is being recognized. The National Day of Mourning takes place on Sunday, April the 28th. And will be observed at both the Township of Langley's Civic Facility and the Operations Centre on Friday, April the 26th. This is a time when municipal employees pay tribute to the hundreds of workers who die every year on the job, and those whose lives have been forever changed by injury. Flags will fly at half-mast at all township facilities to honor those who have lost their lives or been injured on the job. And at this time, I'd like to ask those who are able to please stand, and we'll have a moment of silence. Okay, with that, I would ask for an adoption of the minutes for the regular evening council meeting on April 1st and the public hearing April 1st. Moved by Councillor Ferguson, second by Councillor Kunst. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favour? Opposed and carried. So now we move on to presentations. And we have a Community of Communities mural unveiling tonight. And so with that, I'm going to just read a few notes that I have, and we have some presentations, and it's a pretty exciting, I think this is history tonight, when you change our chambers in such a significant way with such a significant mural. I think that's very, very, very nice to do. And so I'd just like to say that we welcome the members of the Kwantlen First Nation here, and they're going to perform a song for us. So at this point, I'd ask Kevin Kelly to bring up his drummers and singers and perform a song. Thank you very much for coming. And I'll turn that mic on there if you wanted to speak to the audience right there. Are you okay? Okay.
I'd like to thank our honored Jack Rose, the mayor and council, for always respecting our protocol in your home. When we come into the home here, our family from Kwantlen, from our elders and all our members, and the one that's doing the beautiful work for you, we respect your home like you respect our longhouse in the community. I say to our family in Kwantlen, whenever we come into the office here, we have the most respect from the township, from our mayor and our councillors, and they respect the land that they're on. They say this every time we come in here. We are honored to be here to support you. To the people that are here to witness the work, we start off with a song for our family, but it's also for each and every one of you. We always say to the people, sometimes when we do this work, they'll come up and say, thank you for the show. Thank you for the presentation. My son will be here shortly, but what he'd say to them is, it's not a performance and it's not a show. Our elders tell us every song we sing is a prayer song. Maybe tonight you have somebody that's in the hospital not feeling good, or at home, you had to leave at home that's not feeling well. Or maybe you're not feeling good tonight. What we say to each and every one of you is when we sing the song, our drummers and singers, I thank her, all our women and our men for always coming for the chief. Daquasan.
Medicine.
This is our medicine. So when we sing this song for you, it's a welcome, but it's also to ground you, to warm up your hearts. And if you're going through anything or you have a family member, this is when you pray in your own way. Sometimes these songs will make you cry, and this is okay. We say don't ever feel bad if you need to cry. This is when you do it. So I thank you all for the respect, and I hope this will be good medicine for each and every one of you too. As for the people that have come to witness the work, Sam. Everybody else stand, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your prayer song or your welcome song. Okay. So in 2017, Canada celebrated its 150th birthday. The Township of Langley, as I've already said, is on the traditional territories of the Kwantlen, Katzie, Semiahmoo, and Musqueam First Nations, and took on a legacy project to bring together members of our 6 urban communities, the rural community, and First Nations to celebrate our diversity, heritage, and inclusivity. This Community of Community project was funded by the Government of Canada and the Department of Canadian Heritage through a grant from the Canada 150 Fund. As part of this project, thousands of residents from all of the township's communities agreed to have their photos taken, and these portraits have been incorporated into a mosaic mural created by artist, hopefully get this right, Kwaiditsa, Phyllis Atkins of Kwantlen First Nation. Did I get that right? Yeah, excellent, yeah, practiced. She has created a truly unique and remarkable piece, and I think you'll be really impressed with her artwork, which is called Stalu, meaning Big River. I'd like to thank all the residents who took part in this unique project, and to Kwaiditsa, who is here with Chief Marilyn Gabriel and other members of the Kwantlen First Nation. I'm really happy to have our Member of Parliament, John Aldag, here with us tonight, and he's a Member of Parliament for Cloverdale, Langley City. And I'd like to ask Mr. Aldag if you could come to the podium to say a few words on behalf of the federal government. Welcome here. And if you want to come to the podium and just face the crowd, we're okay with your back. That's right.
All right. Well, Your Worship, Mayor Froese, members of council, Chief Marilyn, members of Kwantlen, and all of our friends, neighbours, and family from Langley Township. It's truly an honour to be here this evening on behalf of Minister Pablo Rodriguez, the Minister of Canadian Heritage and Multiculturalism, and I'm also delighted to be here as a long-time Township of Langley resident. Let me begin by acknowledging that we're gathered on the traditional territory of the Katzie, Kwantlen, and Musqueam First Nations, and by recognizing the long history of Indigenous peoples in British Columbia on whose territories we work, live, and play. It seems like only yesterday that communities from coast to coast to coast took part in an unforgettable year of celebrations in recognition of Canada 150. 2017 provided an incredible opportunity for British Columbians to celebrate and share what makes our communities unique, diverse, and vibrant. To be able to reconnect again this evening, embracing those same sentiments and commemorating that special moment in time is indeed a unique honour. The Government of Canada took great pride in supporting projects like this commemorative photo mural that encourage people from all walks of life to come together in celebration and hope. This wonderful legacy project will serve as a lasting reminder to all of us about the importance of community, the vitality of our culture, the strength of our diversity, and our connections to one another and the land on which we live. I would especially like to take a moment to recognize Kwantlen First Nation artist Kwaiditsa for her outstanding work on this mural. Without her creative vision, this project would not have taken shape. I would also like to thank the Township of Langley, including Mayor Froese and members of Langley Council, for their efforts in bringing this project to fruition. The milestone of Canada's sesquicentennial allowed us to celebrate the millions of Canadians who have come together to make our country the strong, inclusive, and open place it is today. This mural is a living embodiment of just how bright and prosperous that future promises to be. Congratulations, and like the rest of you, I really look forward to seeing this in a few moments when we get to unveil it. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Froese.
Thank you very much, John. I would now like to invite Chief Marilyn Gabriel and Kwaiditsa to the podium to speak on behalf of the Kwantlen First Nation.
Awesome. I just want to call up all our family from Kwantlen to stand with my baby sister. Come stand and support your wife, your mom, sister, niece,
Dennis,
all our Kwantlen family.
Ange,
One
Michelle,
we've claimed, our drummers and singers.
Peter.
You know who you are, Kwantlen. Come on.
Julia.
We've claimed you. You're here, girls. Nice try. Come on. Yeah. All the support workers, get up here.
Peter, Arkell.
Get up here. You know who you are. Come on, Rosemary. Come on. I feel like the price is right. No, just kidding. OCM, dearly respected council, our dear family and friends from the Township of Langley, our family, this is our Kwantlen family. If they're not Kwantlen, we've claimed them as Kwantlen, just as we've claimed these family behind us, so you guys should be standing up too. But I'm not going to tell you guys what to do. But on behalf of my my family, this is my younger sister, Koiditsa, and all her family have the gift with the hands. Creators bless them to storytell, as she told us on Friday. She does not use words. She does it by showing off their work with her hands, through her visions. And tonight you're going to see that and witness that. They all of them have art in them. They're gifted by the Creator. Bless them with the working hands, with the Spirit. We're so honored that you guys have all come out and witnessed this day. We're talking, you know, the evening that we have is celebration. And we have lots to be thankful and grateful for. Every one of us. We live in a beautiful community of Langley. We work together. Yayastil. Working together. That's what Yayastil means. Lots of mut. One mind, one heart. That's all of us. Working in the beautiful community of Fort Langley, Langley. And we're so lucky in Aldergrove. We're so blessed that we live in such a beautiful community where families matter. With our children, our future leaders, they're our most precious resource, our children. And our elders that we have here, including my mom. Mom, wait. This is White Bush Patco. That's her traditional name. And my Auntie Helen. She works in a school, and Uncle Ricky. We're all here to honor this beautiful family. But today, especially my sister, Koiditsa. 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 This is her name. You'll know around the Langley area. And we've been blessed, her artwork's everywhere, as well as her husband's. It's everywhere. They're beautiful work. But we say, by working together as a community, this would have not have come to be. It's easy to be angry. I always say to my children, I'm going to do a lesson, I guess. But it's hard being one family, to be one community. It's easy to walk away and be mad. The test of everybody's love, respect, kindness is that you have to stay at the table and work with one another. You don't walk away out of anger. We have to sacrifice and come to compromise to being one family, right? We all don't get our own way. Darn it, right, Dayton? We don't get our own way. He does, but he can. He's the boss. But as one door closes, another one opens. And this is what my sister felt in her heart today. This project has gone on for a while for her, but I always say it's come at the right time. Time it's precious, but it came when we needed it. We needed this celebration. Our family in Kwantlen needed this really bad. To unite together, to be lots of one mind, one heart. Yaya still work together. This is what we needed, so I thank her for having it tonight. And maybe in our township, we needed this. We needed this as a family in Langley. So tonight's a celebration, and we're honored to be here. And we're just grateful that you all came out to witness my sister's beautiful work. And again, it's not easy to work together. You have to be committed to sit with one another through thick and thin, through the good and the bad. That's what family is. And if that doesn't work, then that's okay. You tried. But our teachings are very simple, and our people. Respect, our listening is the most precious one. Fully listen to one another. People know when you have painted ears on. You can't trick anybody with painted ears. Respect one another. Utmost respect our people give you. You say, oh, you hear it, oh, you have to earn it. Our people give that. And which way we want to go with it is up to us. Kindness, it's an easy thing to do. Random acts of kindness to one another is simple. Cup of coffee for the next driver behind you at Tim Hortons. Buying someone food when you see them hungry. My kids are teaching me that. They go to Vancouver just to do that. Can learn from these little guys. And love. My son and I got spiritually spanked in Vancouver from an elder who said, love is free. Doesn't cost anything. So share it each day by even a smile, right, right, nephew? See? If that doesn't change you, I'll pray for you. So we're already here sharing our love, her medicine, her gift to her hands that comes from her heart. Everything that they create, they pray for. That's our teachings. Everything they touch, carving, painting, jewelry, everything they do has a prayer behind it. Has a prayer behind it. And everything they create has spirit. Everything that is made has spirit. And you guys are receiving that tonight. And that'll be forever a living spirit in your building and wherever you're putting it. So again, we're honored to be here with our family and our claim family. And we're going to sing an honor song for...
I want to say something.
Oh, she wants to say something.
I know, I usually don't like to talk, but I do want to say, that I want you to know that I did have, where's Dion? Dion, come down here, Dion. This lovely lady is the reason why we're all here.
Oh.
It was all her hard work, getting the grant, doing all the legwork, getting all the photos,
No.
and Peter Arkell,
Peter.
Peter Arkell, I wouldn't have been able to do this without
Come up, Peter. Over here.
Peter as well.
Stand by Drew, your buddy.
I work with Peter at Pictographic Creative, and he is so awesome to work with, and we've worked on a few projects together now, and so he knows my style, he knows how I work, and we work really well together. And what I love about him is he's so positive. I love positive energy. And I'm going to be honest, I struggled a little bit about this project, Canada 150. Not my own struggles, but from outside, negative. A lot of our people are hurting. A lot of our people see this as celebrating colonialism. We can't undo the past. We can't go back. I can't take my mom from residential school her whole life. We can't take that back. We can't take back all the hurt and wrongs that our people have lived through. But I wanted to take this opportunity as a platform to say we are resilient. You'll see it in my work. The salmon represent resilience. They have the tenacity to do whatever it takes to get back to the spawning grounds. And that's why I named my studio Kwaia. Because of the strength and the importance of the salmon to our community. We come from a family. Our people have been here for thousands of years. We've been fishing these rivers for thousands of years. We've lived with the land for thousands of years. We've always been here. We're connected to the land. I was in her stomach. She was pregnant with me, fishing on the water. I am connected to the river. My family, her family, from here all the way up to Merritt. We are connected to the land. And I had the awesome opportunity to work with Flynn Rowe and BC Conservation, doing work with the sturgeon. That is the other mural, and my husband actually did a beautiful carving called Elders of the River. We consider the sturgeon our elders, and we respect that we have, like we have the respect for our elders. You'll see in a few minutes. Drum roll. Drum roll. Drum roll. But we are people of the river. We're connected to the river, to the land. We're still here, and we're going to keep doing all these things for future generations. We've gone through all the hard, tough things so that these guys have a better future. Ocean.
So just another note, the salmon brought by our dear healer, McLaren, she told the salmon was a new beginning. A new beginning. And as my sister said, everything we know is sacred. The sacred water, the trees, the animals, right? Everything's sacred to our people. And everything has medicine to it. I thank you for speaking. I was hoping she's going to do that because I could not say what she's going to say from her heart. We were at another gathering on Friday, and she told us she speaks her work. So I'm glad she spoke. And you're a beautiful speaker. Never question that, my dear sister. Never question that. And again, we're so honored, and I would like my dear brothers and sisters to sing an honor song on the celebrating of tonight and our future. And we do everything for our people, our teachings. As we work, we don't stand here for ourselves. That's the first thing our elders tell us. We stand here and work for the next 7 generations. As my dear sister said, the next 7 generations. That's how far we have to think outside here. And that's a lot of responsibility. And I'm going to task that to you as well. Everything we do is for the next 7 generations. Your great-grandchildren's children, uncles, brothers, uncles, sisters. No, you know. but I just kidding. I'm kind of not here. I'm a grandma second time round.
Woo.
As of 11:58, April 14th, we had a grandson named Jack Jack. So that's where our family, Michael and Allie are late. They had to go to the hospital. They had to go see Jack Jack. He's 9 pounds, 6.8 ounces. She had it, just a laughing gas. She hasn't beat my record yet. I had 6 cans, she had 2. Just kidding. But little Jack Jack Kelly was born, and just wanted to share that other beautiful thing. So I'll be praying for my little grandson. So I thank you, and we're honored to be here. And we love in each and every one of you. Malasia. So, oh, okay.
Hey, you're supposed to stay here.
Nice try.
Good try, good try.
Watch out when you dance.
Hey, yeah, so thank you very much. So thanks. I'm going to give some instructions on the unveiling. That's coming up next. But I really want to thank Chief Gabriel and Quaiditza for their kind words. Thank you very much. And if anyone is ever wondering what Truth and Reconciliation means or what it's all about, you just witnessed it. I think this is all you need to see is this is what it's all about. It's working with our partners and working towards the future. And I really appreciated the words that you said about moving forward. So to unveil, I'm going to ask John Aldag to go up with Chief Gabriel, and I'll go up with Quaiditza. We'll unveil each mural at a time, and then once that's all done, then we'll ask the council to come up, and along with the Kwantlen First Nation members to come up for a group picture. So.
Oh, how many in? Yeah, my back is.
Also, join you, my foot.
They're $20 each.
Okay.
Because I gotta pay for them. Right?
Yeah.
I got a box of them in that car.
Okay. Coolio.
Fresh off the press. I know. We just recorded it last weekend.
Did you?
Yeah, it seems with this thing on, I can only see this part.
Nice.
You're in there somewhere. Yeah, I'm in there somewhere. Yeah.
You're gonna tell it until we'll have to forward that. So we're gonna have to stay for the whole thing.
One,
Two, three. Lovely. Lovely, lovely. Isn't it? Oh, sorry. It's beautiful.
Right.
Pictures and pictures. Right?
That's
Amazing. It's cool. I love the sturgeon. Where you go, Phil? Or excuse us.
It's a dance. Gotta push it out and then turn around. But you're gonna be no. Okay. Okay.
Should I turn around?
Yeah. Thank you. Just this way. Get it right.
Oh, it goes up?
All right, if I could have everyone's attention, if we could have our seats, and we have 2 more presentations, and there are a lot of people in the hallway, so if family leaves, we certainly can get some more seats in here, but we're going to do the next presentation, just get council back. Yeah, it does. Good seeing you. Michael, good seeing you. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How are you? Doing really good. How are you? Oh, you're looking great. I'm doing very well. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for letting us take up.
Okay, we're going to carry on with the next presentation. And it is my pleasure and honor to welcome the Credo Christian Kodiak Senior Girls Basketball Team, who won the 2018-2019 BC School Sports Girls A Basketball Provincial Championships in March. This is an incredible accomplishment to these exceptional young basketball players, so congratulations. A lot of hard work and commitment was shown by the team members and by their coaches, and the result was being named the best in BC. You set an exemplary example for athletes of all ages in our community and should be very proud of this achievement. So I'm going to come on up, we'll have a certificate, and when we call your name, come and get your certificate, and then line up and we'll get a picture. So. So tonight is a night full of entertainment and lots of activity, and we have a presentation or a couple of songs by the Langley Ukulele Ensemble, and they're going to perform some of the songs from the upcoming May 11th, 2019 concert, and this presentation was approved by Council at the February 11th meeting of this year. So I know they're all coming in, and welcome here to the Langley Ukulele Ensemble, and thank you for performing at the Volunteer Appreciation Dinner. I know I couldn't make it, but I heard great reviews about your performance, so thank you very much.
Should they come out here, Jeff? Can they be there?
There's quite a bunch. I think David. I think it might be David. Wherever it's easiest, I think. So we'll let Paul. Sure, you can do there. Yep. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm good. So this is the Senior B Langley Ukulele Ensemble. I'm just curious, who here has heard of the Langley Ukulele Ensemble before? Oh, fantastic. Well, I know with these, yes, I'm glad you're coming around. I know that sometimes, these meetings, you might want to, stretch or feel like, you look at your watch every now and then. It can get quite exciting, or maybe the opposite. Who knows? But this piece, I think, would be great to just, keep the pace going with tonight, I think. You'll know what I mean when we play. You'll know what I mean. Here we go. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. finish with this last song. Is that okay? It's one that I think would go well with the theme of tonight's topics. I think one of them had to do with trees. I live in Abbotsford now, so I don't know. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. My fiance calls it Timbuktu, but anyways, no, but I understand one topic is something to do with trees. Is that right? Something to yeah. So I was thinking we just did music from the '60s and the end of the '60s, '70s, to my understanding, anyways, because I wasn't around then, but my dad was, because he's a little. Okay, I won't go there. Is that he had this whole thing of this peace, make peace, not war, love, and the people who loved the trees and everything around it. Well, this song, ladies and gentlemen, actually sings of making the world a better place, and it's by one of the Beatles. You may have heard of him. His name was John Lennon, and it's the lyrics in the song tell the story, and it's one to just imagine what the world would be if we all just gave a helping hand and did something positive to make a difference. So, ladies and gentlemen, a debut performance by John Lennon, because if he had only performed with the ukulele, imagine. see and hear the new songs they're learning for that album. If you like Summer Breeze, if you like a little bit of Jackson 5 and all that kind of music, it's a lot of 60s, 70s. It should be a fun concert. So check out our website.
Great. I think the mayor, not the line, should be accompanying you to Hawaii, don't you?
All of you, the great chaplain. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, so we'll now move along the agenda. Gets everybody in a good mood. All that music and unveiling of a mural and a young basketball team. That's pretty neat. So we have three delegations, or actually 4 delegations. There's a late delegation, is that correct? Yes. So we'll start with D1, Jessica Yanov. Please come forward. And again, for all the delegations, it's a 5-minute presentation maximum, and you'll see the lights go on, and when it goes solid red, that means your 5 minutes is up.
Awesome. So good evening, your worship and counselors. My name is Jessica Yaniv. I'm an LGBTQ activist, and I live in Walnut Grove. So today I'm here to talk about the BC government's initiative to bring pads and tampons to students, but I think we just need to do a little bit more. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So the BC government mandated that all BC schools must have sanitary products for students. However, they never made any mention in regards to what will be done for trans identifying male students, or rather FTM. So what I'm requesting is that the Township of Langley make a formal statement tonight, right now, that the Township of Langley will provide sanitary products in all gendered restrooms. So the LGBT community will be supported in this, because right now I'm not seeing anything. So in addition to this, my question for mayor and council is, why not civic facilities? Like, essentially, it's great that schools are going to be covered, but what about civic facilities? Are schools perfect? But to give you an example, many of the sanitary dispensers, for example, in Walnut Grove Recreation Center, literally right next to the showers, it's all rusted out. What's the point? It doesn't work. So as an example, no boy or girl has to go upstairs to go and ask for a product. These machines should be maintained. They're not. So I am requesting that the Township of Langley have these in all civic facilities, including all recreation centers, for everyone to use. So in addition to this, I want to talk a little bit about sustainability, because one thing that wasn't mentioned in the BC government's release was in regards to sustainable or reusable products. So what I am asking as well, that the Township of Langley provide sustainable products such as Diva Cup and other products to students. While it's in the budget, why not be the sustainable city that will actually do this? So and one step further is I'd like the Township of Langley to adopt a bylaw that will essentially require all public and private businesses that are open to the public that will have sanitary dispensers for both male and female students, or male and female occupants, because, what are you supposed to do? This really should be a bylaw. Such as the Willowbrook Shopping Center, for example. What is somebody supposed to do? Our airport. I've never been to our regional airport, but what is somebody supposed to do, essentially? So I and ask the question, essentially.
Okay, thank you. If the council does want to take any action, usually it's done in other business.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for presentation. All right, the next delegation is D2, Diane Kask. You don't have to state your age if you qualify for the super senior rate.
Oh, yeah, sure.
We just passed that earlier. See, I say you don't have to state your wage.
I'm Diane Kask. I live in Aldergrove, V4W 3B2. I really wanted Councillor Long to be here today, and as soon as I say my first sentence, you'll know why. Everybody loves a recreation centre when they have access to it. Honourable Mayor and councillors, thank you for allowing me to speak with you tonight about access to the Aldergrove Credit Union Community Centre and the Otter Co-op outdoor experience. There are many people in the Aldergrove community that do not have access to our shiny new recreation complex. Residents have lobbied for 30 years or more to have a larger pool to meet the needs of the community. Our new pool and water park is large enough to meet the needs of Aldergrove, but not the needs of the Lower Mainland. One group that is denied access is the disabled. There has been no provision made for those with disabilities to jump the lineup, and they must wait for an hour in the hot sun if they would like to have relief from the heat in the summertime, which makes it impossible for some to attend. All of the surrounding municipalities have some type of youth unlimited summer pass at a reasonable price to all drop-in programs, not just the pools, but the skating, basketball, and for those 13 and over, the fitness centres. Some are $20, which allows youth entrance to all drop-in programs throughout the summer. I believe Pam Alzona sent all of council and some staff a comprehensive list of surrounding municipalities. Even the Walnut Grove and Blair pools have toonie days. We need to have easy access for all of our children up to the age of 18 years. I know that needing to subsidize recreation centres puts a burden on the township, but the cost will be paid in other ways, if not through recreation. I wonder how much it costs the township every time the RCMP are called to ask loitering youth at the Aldergrove Credit Union Community Centre to leave. I wonder where the youth go and what they do. I wonder about the harm that is done to their lives. In comparison to a reasonably priced, unlimited summer pass, perhaps the pass is the least expensive. The social sustainability strategy workshops done last year showed that one of the two top concerns in Aldergrove are children and youth. Children and youth were not one of the top two concerns for the rest of Langley Township. An unlimited summer pass at a reasonable price can help with these concerns. It is a waste of township money to look for a problem, find it, and do nothing about it. The plan to raise rates at the Otter Co-op Outdoor Experience Water Park by 50% for the May 2019 opening is unacceptable. Aldergrove residents were promised on many, many occasions that the cost of the water park would be the same as the cost of the other Langley Township indoor pools. The reason cited by staff that the fees needed to be raised was because of the large amount of users for the July and August 2018 season. The usage caused an increase in staff and maintenance. Therefore, the numbers should be kept lower to decrease the need to raise fees and to make the Otter Co-op outdoor experience safer and more fun. We are fine with those from outside of Langley Township paying a higher fee to attend the water park, since they were not the ones that pay the taxes or worked toward the building of it for years by writing letters, attending planning sessions, and presenting to council, as in what I am doing today. After all of our years of work trying to attain a local pool that would meet the needs of our community, to have it taken over by those from other municipalities and making it inaccessible for Aldergrovians, I noticed the light. The Otter Co-op outdoor experience needs to have at least 2 days a week when only Langley Township residents and their guests are allowed entry. One of these days must be a weekend. We need these changes to be made before the 2019 opening of the Otter Co-op Outdoor Experience Water Park. We understand the Township of Langley's need to balance the books, and you may be thinking right now that all of this seems nice, but how are we going to pay for it? This can be revenue neutral by raising the admission fees for those from outside of our municipality by 75%. Many will still come, but there will be less users, and as Mr. Backen stated, the reason the fees needed to be increased was because more users than were predicted to attend at the water park last summer. Even if it is not revenue neutral, it is the right thing to do. Try it for the summer and let's find out. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you tonight on behalf of those with disabilities, children, youth, adults, and seniors on the community's concerns regarding access to the Aldergrove Credit Union Community Centre and the Otter Co-op Outdoor Experience.
Okay, thank you. There are some questions from council. One thing I just want to point out, and I'm sure you're aware, there's about 25% of that facility was funded by the taxpayers of Canada. We got a $10 million grant for it. So I know we have to consider this, for people outside the area, but it wasn't all paid for by the Township of Langley. Mm-hmm. And we have to respect, at least I feel we need to respect that funding from the federal government. So, to restrict it is sometimes difficult to do, just based on who paid for it. So I just want to point that out. Councillor Woodward.
Yeah, I want to thank you for the presentation. I want to thank you for some of the emails we've been getting. I think, we might have messed this one up a tad. I think we can still fix it. I think the issue, though, I wanted to ask you was maybe, I think it's going to be a tad complicated to maybe get to youth and residency requirements and a couple of things in time for the May-June season. So in terms of the 50% increase for the water park section, what's your opinion of a more modest increase for this year to get us through this year and then come up with a long-term solution starting next year? What's your opinion of a reasonable increase for this year with the policies the way they are, and then we can get into it and get a long-term solution starting in 2020? What's your thoughts there?
Well, what I think is that if you want to raise the rates a little bit, fine, but we need 2 days a week for Langley Township residents only, and those can be at a lower rate.
What days of the week would those be?
We have to have one weekend, so it could be Friday, Saturday. Or we could have Saturday, Wednesday, but I think that if they're closer together, it might be easier for everybody else to remember, but it would probably be better separate it for the township residents.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yes, thanks for coming and speaking to us today, and as well, I know we've received lots of emails, and for those who sent them, appreciate the emails. I just had a question around the disabilities and the point you made at the beginning. The question I had was, is the concern more around them being able to have access or get into the facility because the lineups are long, or is it around the mobility of and access to the facility through mobility and being able to get into the various parts of the facility?
They can get into the parts of the facility. The problem is that even if they're just going to go into the pool, they have to get the back of the line, and it's an hour wait in hot weather. And you may not even get in. If you're going to go to like the 2 o'clock, you might not get in at all. If you try it at the 10 o'clock, but then it's not that warm, and some seniors and whatever don't want to go in when it's not that warm. So they need to have a pass of some kind so that they can just go to the front of the line, go inside to the desk and say, here's my pass, pay my fees, let me go in.
So this idea would apply to both seniors, but also to persons with disabilities. Is that what you're sort of thinking?
I'm not saying every senior. I'm saying seniors, but I'm thinking the older seniors that they may have something like one of those handicap stickers on their car, so they have to park a little bit closer.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Richter?
Yeah, so you started out by saying that the 50% increase was unacceptable. So you want for
Yeah.
the water park side. So, and you wanted it to be the same price as the pool side?
Yes.
Okay, so the pool side did go up 3% this year. You're okay with the 3%?
Yeah, I'm okay with 3%.
Okay. And the summer youth pass, would this be for the pool as well, or just the rec programs?
Any of the drop-in things, the pools and whatever, I think they need to have. We wanted a pool so badly for our kids, so our kids can have something to do in the summertime. And there isn't a lot out in Aldergrove to do. We don't have the Aldergrove Lake. We don't have other things that we had. We need to give them something they can do, and just, it's not going to be a burden on their families. It's just going to be like they get a friend, go down and have fun.
Okay, and so you said that's for all children up to 18 years old?
Yeah.
Up to 18. Okay, now with this pass, would they be able to jump the queue and go to the front of the queue? No. Okay.
No.
So how do you jump the queue with the pass?
The pass is for the people with disabilities, and another pass, I guess they'd have to go in with their parents with the having a maybe their birth certificate. I think the other municipalities say they need the birth certificate and proof of residence, and then they can get the pass. Yes.
So the 3% is okay for the Aldergrove and Township residents, but anybody that doesn't live in Langley Township should be paying 75% increase.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let them pay
And
for
the
it.
last question that I had is, you mentioned the long lineups, and I've actually heard some horror stories of people waiting in the lineups in really hot weather and not being able to get in. How do you recommend or suggest that we avoid these lineups? Like, what can we do to stop them?
Well, one thing would be to raise the rates for those people outside the township. They're coming because it's so inexpensive. And that's why they're coming, like for a family rate. The family rate is really quite reasonable, the present one, without it going up. But if you raise the rate for the family rate, then they'll think, oh, gee, if I'm going to pay for 2 sessions, then maybe it's not such a good deal, and maybe as many wouldn't come, is what I would say.
Okay. But, but let's, hypothetical situation, we've got a long lineup and it's all township residents.
Okay.
How do we avoid that lineup?
You know, I don't know.
Okay. I just wondered if you had
I don't
any
know. Maybe
ideas.
I had, at one point I thought of maybe online, maybe 50% of the people can already pay online ahead of time, so they reserve their families coming today. Let's go Saturday at 2:00, and so we can go online. Just the same way we signed up last summer for the practice sessions, the free sessions at the beginning.
Great. Thank you very much.
Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you very much for coming, and I've also appreciated the emails that we received, and particularly I know that you're a champion for all things Aldergrove, and so I do appreciate that you do a lot of work and try to figure out. It is a wonderful facility, and I think maybe to some degree it's suffering from over-success, but it has only been a year that it's been open, and so I think that some of these things, I mean, when I received these emails, and I went to see staff a couple of times just to talk about the general parameters, because there's quite a few different things that are going on around the same time. I sort of refer to it as a matrix, because you've got different movements and different people and price points and all those things. So just to confirm that actually the township is continuing to review these strategies and price points, etc., because I think more than anything, we want to ensure that families and seniors and handicapped people, whoever comes to use it, gets the full use and enjoyment of it as an amenity in our community. So, but thank you for bringing these things forward. I have no silver bullet myself.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, next delegation is the BC Greens of Langley.
Hello there. Yeah, so you got it? Great. Hi, so my name is Paul McComber, and I am a lifetime resident of Langley and the youth ambassador to the BC Greens of Langley. For the past 5 Fridays, I and those from Climate Save Langley and others here with me have gathered around the Township of Langley's civic facility in solidarity with Greta Thunberg and the thousands of other youth who do the same globally. Our desire has been simple: to elevate within Langley our judiciary and moral responsibility to preserving the earth upon which we stand. There is no doubt, given the recent revelations of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a serious crisis is at hand. Its urgency is palatable and will take nothing short of rapid and concrete action to overcome. As I stand here before you, Honorable Council, I see our desires as one and the same. We may just be youth, but we believe we can fix this problem together. We believe in our elected councillors. We believe that this township we call home has the power to become a clear climate leader. You will hear a proposal today on accelerating climate action in Langley. This proposal is nothing drastic. I want you to know that. It is informed by the latest research. This is simply what is required to survive and hopefully, beyond that, to restore our home to a healthy state. I am confident, despite this challenge ahead, the township has the means to differentiate itself. Now, however, the time has passed to wait. We are at the beginning of a new day. These actions we take, however small, will influence our future and our children's future. Therefore, I request you, Honorable Council, for a positive reception of this proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Paul is the BC Greens of Langley Youth Ambassador. He does a great job. My name is Cheryl Weens. I'm a township resident, a laboratory scientist, the communications coordinator for the BC Greens of Langley, and most importantly, I'm a mom. As a scientist, I could speak to you today about all the scientific evidence on climate change and what it means for Langley. However, I feel that the motion you have in front of you already makes a very good evidence-based rationale for voting in favor of declaring a climate emergency this evening. Instead, I want to speak to you as a mother. On behalf of my 2-year-old daughter, I have my daughter's favorite book here with me today. It's called The Curious Garden. It tells the story of a boy named Liam who lives in a town without any trees or greenery of any kind. One day, Liam stumbles upon a lonely patch of plants. Liam knows the plants are dying, so he begins tending to them. Pretty soon, new plants and new gardeners are popping up everywhere. Eventually, the whole town is transformed. The township of Langley can be a beautiful place to live, but for the last 2 summers, my daughter has had to breathe wildfire smoke that research indicates can be like smoking 2 to 3 packs of cigarettes a day. And things are not expected to get better. Given the status quo, scientists predict that by 2100, the Fraser River in Langley will have risen at least 1.4 meters. Further demand will have been put on our already overused aquifers, and increasing summer heat combined with decreasing air quality will have caused a significant increase in respiratory and heat-related illnesses. I don't want that future for my daughter. The good news is that the IPCC has laid out a very clear action plan for the global community. The choice is whether we implement that plan or not. So this evening, I'm here to urge you to be like Liam, to take the lead in tending to what is left of our environment by declaring a climate emergency this evening and starting work to develop a carbon budget. You can help us to do our part to address climate change and inspire others in our global community. Together, we can avoid the worst consequences of climate change and ensure a sustainable future, not only for my daughter, but for her generation and all generations to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question from Councillor Richter.
I wonder, I've heard this expression a lot lately, this climate emergency.
Yes. Yeah.
And I look around and it doesn't really seem like it looks like an emergency.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what exactly is meant by climate emergency, and what will it specifically mean here in our community?
Yeah, okay. So there's a couple points to that question. So what is meant by the climate emergency? The first is to recognize the scale of the problem that we face. We have to get all of developed countries to turn around their energy systems in approximately 10 to 12 years, the IPCC says, to avoid the most catastrophic effects of climate change. That's not very long to completely transform our energy systems. And that means all levels of government need to understand how serious this is and work together to achieve that goal. We need to be at net zero carbon emissions by 2050. That's not long, and that's a huge change. And it requires the municipal governments as well as provincial, federal, all levels. And as a developed country, we have been some of the worst contributors to this problem, and that means we actually need to do more. So that's why it's an emergency, is because of the tight time frame and the scale of the change that's required and the consequences that will occur if we don't change our ways.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get what it means for me at a local level on a day-to-day basis. Does it mean I stop driving cars, or I only drive electric cars?
No, it means we need to get together, first acknowledge the crisis. We need to look at what the scientists are telling us we need to do, which is curb our emissions, and then come up with ways that don't destroy everybody's lives and require them not to fly or drive everywhere. You know, we're seeing electric vehicles, electric planes. I believe there's a company that's going to be flying Victoria with electric planes by 2020. So these things are not impossible, and we don't need to completely stop driving everywhere and walk everywhere. And you can't. I work in Abbotsford. I can't walk to Abbotsford for my job. That's not feasible. I'm not going to bike. Maybe if there was better bike infrastructure. There are options that exist, things that we can do if we take it seriously.
Thank you.
I'm sure you meant better bike infrastructure in Abbotsford. Just my comment.
The whole way.
Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you very much for coming. Since it's the motion that I wrote, and in considering it and trying to come up with in my own mind, and I do appreciate Councillor Richter's question and comments regarding, well, what constitutes an emergency? And one of the things that came to my mind is I recall in learning about, and sometimes just a simple graphic will really say a lot about what a situation is. And it was a picture of a big metal pot, and there was a frog in it with some water. And underneath it, somebody had lit the gas. And the frog at first was quite happy because the water was warming up and he was probably doing the backstroke and he was very happy. But, the gas, when you don't turn it off, eventually becomes too hot. And the frog was, quickly, becoming aware of its peril, but couldn't get out. So really the frog in the pot, at what point do we say to ourselves, this is an emergency? It's not something we've had to, I think, apprehend as a human species before, because this is very unprecedented. There may have been times when there were really severe climatic changes, but we don't understand what would have happened at that time. And, we're a very huge population with really at this point nowhere else to go. So I do appreciate that part. And, the sense of emergency, I think socially we generally use the word emergency if something's on fire. Like I need to jump out of the building because if I don't, I'm going to catch on fire. But in this sense, the emergency really is a challenge And I don't know if there's a better word to use other than emergency, except to say, I think as you've correctly pointed out, the real emergency is the time frame, because we have been so inactive for so long. And we have created, in that sense, the emergency by not taking any action sooner. So it seems really dramatic and it seems precipitous, but that's really because the theory of global warming has been going on for 30 or 40 years. And through, collective inaction, here we are. So, but I really, totally appreciate your coming out tonight and your comments. And anything else you want to add?
Just that there's newspaper articles from 1906 that predict the phenomenon we know as global warming. So this is not new news. Big Oil has known about this for decades. Scientists have known about this for decades. It's an emergency because of inaction. So tonight we can change that. We can change the tide, and we can start taking action.
Thanks. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yes, thank you for coming today. Earlier in the conversation, you mentioned the words establishing a carbon budget. Can you just expand on what that would mean for the Township of Langley, what a carbon budget is?
Am I okay? Okay. So basically, the township has done a very good job of reducing their corporate emissions, but now we need to look at community emissions. So that means all of the residents in the Township of Langley and their carbon footprints, and how we can work as a government, at the government level, the municipal level, to reduce that. So whether that's having a tree protection bylaw, or investing in better cycling infrastructure, public transit, having people collect their rainwater, all kinds of things, all kinds of initiatives are going to be required to reduce retrofitting people's homes, for example. I know the province is working a lot on, starting to work on that with the Clean BC program. But I can't tell you exactly what it will look like at this point, but what we need to do is we need to figure out where are our emissions now and how much do we need to reduce them every year in order to get to net zero emissions by 2050. Because that's what scientists say we need to do. It's not some crazy idea. It's just what we need to do to be able to survive for future generations as a species.
Okay. Hey, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, the next delegation is Dr. Joe Salmona.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'm Joe Salmona, and since 1987, our family has been the landlord at 7680 2028. But before I get to my prepared remarks tonight, I really was touched by the three groups that you had tonight. A lot of young people which don't often see here in council, one in arts and one in sports and one in music. And I think what I have to say tonight, I think supports our youth, and we need to take action, as we just heard in the last comments. So maybe I'll get to my prepared remarks. And I'm here this evening to talk about a notice of motion that's coming later in the agenda, regarding how do we start to finish the Willoughby arterials. And to start, let's thank Councillor Woodward for a fresh idea that may make sense to fix the problems that we're well aware of. We very much agree. That makes sense, that we need to be looking at more than just wringing our hands and hoping somebody else will do something. Now at least we have a solid proposal. Whether we agree with it or not, that's at least for something to debate. But I'm sure you'll recall the wonderful presentation we had a few weeks ago from a concerned parent about the need for safe pedestrian access to the high schools. We can't forget that. And that's really what we're here to talk about tonight, not necessarily what we're going to do about the roads themselves. And I think for the message for the council, and we have 3 educators on council. We have another councillor who leads child sports. And for your worship, as a police officer, all of you have dealt in your professional lives with young people who often consider themselves invincible. And that attitude, as you know, can lead to deadly conflict with cars. And unfortunately, Councillor Long is not here, but as our pioneer newspaper manager, he probably had to cover too many car-related fatalities as headlines. And for all of council and for everyone here tonight, and you might remember how unsafe roads can be and the tragedy that it can create for impacts on families, friends, and colleagues. So let's go to the core of what the proposal is about, because it's really about making sure we think about our youth, we think about looking forward. But I would also add, where are the sustainability life lessons that need to be imparted on Langley students? This won't happen with the current paradigm. Getting to school is often quite unsafe in the current environment. We need more attention to cycling and walking, as we just heard, and we need to make that a priority, and that starts with development. So a few observations about the amenity proposal itself. Most of the audience was not here this afternoon. We heard an excellent report from township staff about the fast tracking of development. That's been addressed, and that's a good thing that we can move forward on. The second part of Councillor Woodward's proposal is incredibly timely. As Council received my email on Saturday, we have a perfect example on the agenda tonight for first reading of a major development application that extends from 202A to 204th. The frontage of 202A, of these two parcels, is directly across from the two new high schools. Our parcel is next to it. Our rental property is right next to this. And we could have up to 100 meters of sidewalk in a perfect location for a drop-off on the east side of 202A, which is going to be needed. Our driveway is the closest driveway to the steps that go to the front door of the new high school. I know exactly what's going to happen. People are going to stop in our driveway, and the kids are going to run across. We need to fix that before this becomes a huge problem. So we need some tools, ladies and gentlemen, and to council. To close, our family sees merit in what Councillor Woodward has to say, but we are just one voice. I trust your worship and council will give a fair and open hearing to this idea and to other ideas on what can and must be done sooner than later. But it is worth calling out that if other voices have a better plan or better ideas on how to resolve this life safety problem that is certainly to come on 202A and grow, in fact, then bring them forward for debate. I'm sure the community would like to hear these ideas. I say more dialogue, and soon. So my suggestion, we start with a public forum. We involve landowners, developers, parents, and neighbors to address Councillor Woodward's proposal and others that may come. I would be pleased to volunteer my time to engage in such a dialogue. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Councillor Woodward has a question.
I just wanted to find out, which property is yours again?
Ours is at 7680-202, which is, as I said, directly across the side or the steps that have been just installed from the drop-off on the west side of 202. Our driveway is directly across from that, and that's closest to the front door.
Directly to the south of the development application that you referenced.
Directly to the south,
yes.
Okay,
thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So now we move on to bylaws for first and second reading. And F1 is a rezoning application and a development permit, and bylaw 5453 by Interface Architecture. Could I, and then 1074201 BC Limited. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Whitmarsh, Councillor Coons seconds. Discussion, Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I'm just opening my thing here. Okay, I'm concerned about the tree loss on this property again. So there's 93 significant trees and none will be retained. And that's on page 12. But I had a question with regards to the wording on page 4. Where it says the proposal is consistent with the Willoughby Community Plan and the Carvalth Neighborhood Plan. And I just had a question to staff. What does consistent with actually mean here? Does it really meet the plan? Because on page 10 there's reference to retail through a retail high street, but I'm not seeing that there's retail in this particular application. So if I could just get
Mr.
that
Seffi?
clarification.
Your Worship, the answer is that it is consistent with the provisions of the plan. Now, this particular application need not provide the commercial that the plan anticipates. The staff report basically states that and confirms that the application is consistent with the provisions of the plan for this particular site.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see no further discussion, so I'm going to call the question on F1. Carries with Councillor Richter and Councillor Arneson opposed. Move to F2, official cleaning plan amendment and rezoning application number 100175. Development permit, bylaws 5362 and 5415. Motion, please. Councillor Ferguson, second by Councillor Kunst. Any discussion on F2? Councillor Richter.
Yeah, in this particular application, there are 133 trees that will be removed. None will be retained because they're all sick. I really find it hard to believe that 133 trees on one property would all be sick.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Arneson.
Well, I don't know that much about tree illness, but I believe that part of the challenge is that when we receive these reports, so we get the basic facts, but we don't get any of the arborist reports that indicate, we may get a summary of what it is that's happening, you know, so maybe the trees can't be accommodated or the trees are suffering because of something else that's happened. But I always think that part of our job when considering the overall tree canopy, and you know, we have to balance these issues, but if you're going to give me a report that just tells me that a bunch of trees can't stay and that we're going to have these replacement trees, there's no evaluation of substitution for trees that can match up with what significant trees can do, not just because it'll take a long time for them to grow, but because of habitat. You know, here I think we also have to look at the building is beautiful. I have no problem at all with the building, but I have to look at some kind of trade-offs. And one day Willoughby will be grown out, and I look at that and I say, okay, well, where's the green space? You know, where's the mature landscaping that people, I think, have a right to as a quality of life? So that's the issue.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I think just in fairness to the package of information that was given to us from staff, it doesn't say that all the trees are sick. It says the majority, which could, of course, be 51%. It doesn't say the number, but I think that's in fairness. It does indicate as well that there'll be 121 trees in place when the project's completed, which is almost equal to the 133 trees which will be removed. So I think we need to be fair to the application, to the actual material.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on not just this particular application as being suggested, but all applications that we get regarding development within all of Langley, is that we have a rigorous environmental and landscaping department that takes their time and energy, and sometimes they're the last to sign off because they are so diligent in getting the matters done, and the tree protections, and also on tree replacement. So they are very diligent, and I understand that even they try to get more than the proposed trees, where in this case 69 are required and 97 are proposed. So we have a really diligent department in that matter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I'll call the question on F2. And it carries. Councillor Richter opposed. We move on to F3. Rezoning application number 100568, Paraspera Holdings Limited, bylaw 5463. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Davis, second by Councillor Kuntz. Discussion. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship, maybe to staff. So I'm not all that familiar except with what it says in the staff report. And so it says there's processing functions that are having to do with the cannabis as well as testing. So is staff aware the degree to which there could be any odor management issues arising from that? Because cannabis inherently has terpenes that actually do have an odor to them. So are we aware of whether or not that is some kind of challenge that we may have with this application?
Mr. Seffi.
Your Worship, the building permit process will address the I guess, the mechanical equipment that are necessary to address, mitigate any other issues.
Okay. I know this is going forward in any event. It's just that I know, and I'm sure that the rest of council is aware, that Metro is looking into regulating these kind of emissions. So that's why I was wondering, because it would be part of a different regulatory process. But thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question on F3. Carries unanimously. Move on to F4. This official community plan amendment and rezoning application number 100162, DP 100978, and DVP 100105. Qualico, bylaw 5451 and 5452. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Arneson, second. I need a seconder. Councillor Whitmarsh, discussion on F4. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Oh, sorry. I saw yours come up. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, the page 15 states that there are 231 significant trees on the subject site, with 1 tree proposed for retention.
Okay. It's interesting to note under the community charter, and I know we'll be discussing tree bylaw later, but it is in the community charter that protection of trees does not apply to the following, and one of is preventing all uses permitted under applicable zoning bylaw, or preventing the development to the density permitted under the applicable zoning bylaw. So just sort of an information item is that we can't really prevent that. We have a designation if the zoning fails, yeah, definitely. But under this, just a kind of a comment to council that it is under the community charter that bylaws don't, and tree protection applies, but we have a development permit process that looks at the trees. Call the question on F4. And it carries. Councillor Richter opposed. And move on to bylaws for first, second, and third reading. G1 is inclusion of a representative from the Fraser Health Authority and the Seniors Advisory Committee. Bylaw 5473. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Arneson, second by Councillor Davis. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question on G1. Carries unanimously. G2 is 2019 Langley annual rates and tax collection bylaw for universal services. Bylaw 5474. Motion. Councillor Woodward, second by Councillor Davis. Discussion on G2. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Carries unanimously. And G3 is sanitary development works agreement bylaws. Bylaw number 5472. Could I have a motion? Councillor Ferguson, seconder. Councillor Davis. Discussion. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, the same question that I had this afternoon with regards to, is the approval, or will the approval of this works agreement bylaw with South Brookswood Infrastructure Inc. in any way, shape, or form hamper or change the work that the neighborhood planning advisory committees will be doing?
Steffi?
The answer is no, Your Worship.
Thank you. See no further discussion. I'll call the question on G3. Carries. Councillor Woodward opposed. And move on to G4, Drainage Development Works Agreement Bylaw, South Brookswood Infrastructure Limited, Bylaw 5471. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Whitmarsh, second by Councillor Kuntz. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question on G4. Carries with Councillor Richter, Councillor Woodward opposed. We move on to bylaws for consideration at third reading. And this is rezoning application 100512, development permit 100969, bylaws 5446, Costo investment. Moved by Councillor Ferguson, second by Councillor Davis. Any discussion on H1? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Carries unanimously. Move on to H2. Official Community Plan Amendment and Rezoning Application 100155 and Development Permit Application 100942. This is Bylaw 5439 and Bylaw 5440. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Whitmarsh, second by Councillor Kuntz. Discussion. Seeing none, calling the question on H2. Carries with Councillor Richter, Councillor Arneson opposed. Move to H3, rezoning application number 100529 and development permit application 101008. Redwood Park Homes, bylaw 5454. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Davis, second. Councillor Kuntz, discussion on H3. Councillor Richter.
Yes, there was quite a bit of commentary at the public hearing with regards to parking issues in the area, as well as the redwood trees. So I was wondering if we could refer this back to staff for more clarification on parking. And I believe that the key parking issue is the on-street parking outside the entrance.
I'll second that. Are you including the trees, Councillor?
Yep.
Yeah.
Refer to staff
Yeah.
to consider the
issues raised at the
delegation.
public hearing.
Is there a second by Councillor Ferguson? I'll open that up for discussion on referring this one to staff. Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question on the referral. That's H3. And it carries with me opposed. That's opposed 1. All right, so now we move on to bylaws for consideration at third reading and final adoption. And I1 will have a little bit of explanation before we move on to it. As official community plan amendment and rezoning application number 100163, and development permit application 101000, Shepherd of the Valley Lutheran Church, bylaw 5406, 5407, 5414. So we have several motions we have to do, and the first one we'll do is to repeal third reading to Township of Langley Housing Agreement bylaw 2018 number 5414, which was granted on October 1st, 2018. And the reason for this is that we now have the legal description of the new parcel that's been created, and that is now part of the bylaw. So we repeal this, and then we carry a new bylaw 5414. So I will ask for a motion to repeal third reading. We'll start with that one. Sure. Entertain your questions.
Some of us weren't on council when this came about. I was wondering if somebody could just give us a quick, really Coles Note version of why we're doing this, if I may.
Sure, I'll ask Mr. Backen or Mr. Seffi. I thought I gave you the Coles Notes version, but Mr. Seffi could do a better job.
Your Worship, I'll dive in on this particular matter. When the application was processed by council, we only had the legal description for the parent property, that is the property before development. As the process has gone forward, there is now a new legal description that's come forth because of the fact that the property's been parcelized. The result is we're erring on the side of caution and inserting the new legal description in the documentation. Easiest way to do that is to rescind third reading to get rid of the old description and then put a new third and final reading in with the new description.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Woodward, you had a question?
Yeah, I was interested in this one. I don't think I've seen this before, and if it went by, I missed it. That, what are the legal ramifications here? If someone receives third reading, does a bunch of work on the file, and then we rescind third reading, don't have the votes anymore, what legally aren't we exposed there in regards to the fact that they must have carried on and spent a fair amount of money moving forward after third reading?
If we did not proceed to grant third and final reading, then we'd have to compensate them for the work they did after the granting of the original third reading.
So, this is one where I was in the audience and felt that there were, some issues that could have been worked on and improved, and this really isn't an opportunity to do anything with those. Did I hear that correctly?
Effectively, that's correct. This is simply a technical.
This is a bit of a housekeeping item. Okay, so we'll now take a motion on the first part to repeal. Councillor Whitmarsh moves, second by Councillor Arneson. So discussion, seeing none, I'll call the question on the first part. And it carries unanimously. So now we could move, I suppose we could move the rest of them all at once. Is that correct? Yeah, Ms. Bauer. So the next three paragraphs, if I could have a motion to move all of those. Councillor Davis moves. Councillor Whitmarsh seconds. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. You got to be a little quicker there, Councillor Ferguson.
Final right now?
We're doing all three, yeah. So.
Okay. I did want to say that regardless of the challenging, and we're sending it's an excellent project, and I think many of us are thinking very positively of what they've done, the church has done, and the community's done. So I wanted to pass that on.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I'm going to support this, although I did want to make a comment one last time about how disappointed I am that we can't put a left-hand access off 72nd into that complex.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll now call a question on I-1. And it carries unanimously. All right, so now we move on to bylaws for final adoption. We've got our work cut out for us tonight. I think there's 9 of them. So we'll start with J1 and development. Oh, yes? Oh, I need a development permit.
The development permit.
I'm sorry about that.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
I missed that. So motion on the development permit with the, is there one development permit? I'm just trying to, yeah, there's one.
Development permit number 101000.
Yes, so I need a motion for that. Councillor Coons, second by Councillor Davis. Call the question on the development permit. Carries unanimously. All right. Okay, bylaws for final adoption, development cost charge waiver for supportive housing, bylaw 5462. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Davis, second by Councillor Kuntz. Discussion, seeing none. Calling the question on J1. Carries unanimously. Move to J2. This is 2019 church permissive tax exemptions, amending bylaws 5464. Have a motion, please. Councillor Davis, second. Councillor Whitmarsh, discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question on J2. Carries unanimously. And we move on to J3, Langley fees and charges bylaw amendment, bylaw number 5469. Now, I believe Mr. Backen, under the Recreation, Culture and Parks, because of the motion that was made in the afternoon meeting regarding the super senior rate, that we need to amend this at this time. Is that correct, or what's the process?
That's correct, Your Worship. If we want to have this go through at the same time, the first amendment, as there may be others, would simply be to amend the bylaw to reflect the super seniors saver rate that was passed in the afternoon.
Okay, so we'll move that with that in it, so it's not an amendment, it's moved with that as part of this this bylaw. So it's moved by Councillor Ferguson, second. Councillor Whitmarsh. Okay, any discussion on this? Call the question. Oh. Well, it is, we moved it with the super senior added in. So,
I'd like to, yeah, I'd like to amend this.
Okay. Okay, so Councillor Richter.
Yes, I would like to propose an amendment that the Aldergrove Outdoor Experience fees be reduced to 3%, consistent with the other fee hikes for pool use for 2019, and that the matter of a two-tiered system as well as increased fees be referred to the Parks Advisory Committee, the Culture, Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, for their review and recommendation back to Council in time for Budget 2020.
Is there a seconder? Davis seconds it. Open up the amendment. So just a question for staff. So this 50% increase we've heard all about, how many dollars did that mean, say, to an adult or to a child? Do we have that information in dollars? I mean, 50% sounds like a lot, but when I looked at it, I thought it was like a couple of bucks. So, and we did review, and it's not, and I've also heard from the delegation, and I appreciate the delegation that in that the fees, they want to have this, it should be the same as all other facilities, but the fees for the pool are the same. They haven't changed. They're going up the same 3% as the rest of the township. It's just the outdoor experience that we would raise 50%. And that was based on a very good report from staff saying that the costs were quite a bit higher than I guess we'd anticipated. So, Mr. Backen, do you have that information, or does that staff have that information?
We're just pulling it up, Your Worship.
Thanks. Just to get some better better handle on it.
All right, so this is through Your Worship to Council. This is option 2 that was requesting 50%. So that would be going from, for a child, $2.95 to $4.45 is an example. So it's taking the current rates and increasing them by 50%.
And in comparison to other water parks, they're in their $20 range or 15, they're in the teens, they're quite a bit more. So I don't see this as quite the hardship that there is. And again, as I said earlier on, for those families that do have a hardship, we do have assistance for them, and yet there's a reality here that the cost of this outdoor experience is significant, and we're still subsidizing it, and even if you doubled the amount of people going there, we still subsidize it more because we have to hire more lifeguards. So I appreciate the sentiment from the community, but the actual dollar amount, it sounds a lot, but when I consider what you'd pay by going to some of the commercial facilities, at 50% there would be substantial, but 50% this is still a real bargain, so I'm not going to support this. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I'm wondering about this bylaw here and whether we are able to pass the bylaw as we have it and then refer, and I'm wondering about referring the comments from the delegation on the outdoor experience maybe to staff for reflection on some thoughts around the issues around seniors, people with disabilities, lineups, some of those kinds of things. And there was some conversation there around, unlimited summer passes and other kinds of things. And I don't know enough about it maybe to be able to respond to that, and yet I don't want to hold up the passing of bylaw. I think we're probably getting to time sensitive where we need to make decisions around this. So I'm wondering if we could pass the bylaw as is and refer the delegation around the outdoor otter experience to staff to come back with some sort of feedback as to what kind of adjustments could be made or not, then some thoughts around for the 2019 season just for the otter outdoor experience, Otter Club.
Okay, thank you. We'll deal with this amendment first, then we can consider that. Councillor Richter?
Well, the Aldergrove residents have made it quite clear that all they ever wanted was an indoor pool like the other communities have. We didn't give them that. We gave them this very unique and fancy water park. But from their perspective, it's all part of the pool. And for us to be charging them more to use what they see to be part of the pool is not fair. And I think that they've expressed that quite strongly over the past few weeks. The motion that I've put in place here, the amendment that I put in place, is basically saying, okay, the outdoor experience, we probably need to treat it differently, but we can't spring it on people this quickly. So we need to let it go at the same rate as the other areas for 2019, but to have our advisory committee review and recommend back to us what their thoughts are. Should it be a 25% increase, a 50% increase, a 75% increase? Should we leave it at the pool price for Langley residents and put it up 75% for alternate residents or residents from outside the community? So I think that this is a fair way to deal with it this year, and I think the public's been quite loud and quite clear on their expectations and their wants around this, and this amendment reflects that.
Thank you. Councillor Woodward?
Yeah, I think when we originally had recommendations around the water park pricing, we were presented with 25%, 50%, and 75%. And I think at that time it was natural to just sort of pick the 50% in the middle of the three options. I think, and one of the reasons we don't go for all four readings at one time is to give chances, give it opportunities for the community to see what we're doing and give feedback before the bylaw goes final. So I'm kind of torn between the situation where 3% up to 2.97 or whatever that would be is not really any point, really, honestly. So 6 cents or something. So I think maybe there's something that's more reasonable where we can have a version of option one or choose option one, which is 20%. Now 20% puts it to around 350. 25%, somewhere a little bit more than that. So we could go back to option one for this year. I think probably the price is set a little bit too low when it opened, and we're going to be dealing with that for a while. So we could, I don't support 3%. I think that we can do 20 or 25, depending on some other comments from council, and then try to sort out these issues: youth discount, TOL residency discount, and pricing for 2020 up to 2022, how we're going to get it to a set rate. I think it's right. I don't think it's hard to say it's going to be this, and then next year it's going to go up by 50%. So I don't support 3%, but I think we could. I'm going to try it. If assuming this fails, that I'd like to look at making an amendment to go back to option one or 20%.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, I think there's been an awful lot of discussion here today about the facility. As a facility user, including there on January the 1st for the first annual Boulder Bear, whatever event they had at the Aldergrove Kinsman Community Center. I believe that perhaps number one or schedule number one, as suggested earlier on, may be kind of a way of looking at it. I think that people get confused between a pool. I'm usually using in the past Blair and Walnut Grove, and you're used to just using the pool, but this one has the outdoor experience. Now, it's not open, as people might understand. It's not open all year round. It's only open during specific seasonal hours and times. So people have an opportunity. If they want to swim, there's a certain price. If they want to use the water park facility, there's another price. So there is confusion. I think there might have been some confusion when we're putting the pricing together. So yeah, I think there is an opportunity here for us to maybe look back. We've heard a number of submissions from users, including myself. I think maybe perhaps, as mentioned, Schedule 1 might be the best way to do it. I believe that's 25%. That might be the solution.
Thank you. Okay, so no further discussion on the amendment. I'm going to call the question.
What's the amendment?
The amendment is Councillor Richter's amendment to not have the 50%, just go to the regular fee increase for the rest of the
3%?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it fails with Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Whitmarsh, Councillor Kuntz, Mayor Froese, Councillor Woodward, Councillor Arneson opposed. So Councillor Woodward.
So I think if there's some just, I mean, I can maybe hear from other members of council to get the amendment right to try to speed this up. That I think 20% is a good number.
We go to the 20. I know there was one option where we phased it in 25% and 25%, or we just want to do 25% now?
I think we have to just do something for this year and then look at a review earlier. So one of the issues with the way this is done is it's coming to us a few weeks before the facility opens, if I have that right. So there's not a lot of time to look at, implement procedures for discounts and passes and residency issues, and that's going to take some time to get that. So I think for right now, roll this back a tad and do 20 or 25%, depending on other members of council and what they think.
Yeah. Well, I think council can support, or at least most of the council, I think, will support 25%. And then I think Councillor Whitmarsh has a motion to refer some of those issues back to staff, and perhaps when we look at next year's rates, we can make that adjustment if we have to go up. But I know there was discussion last meeting of phasing it in a bit. That didn't go. We went to the 50%, but certainly we hear from the public and we can roll it back. So if you want to make that amendment.
I'll make an amendment to go back to option 1 to make it simple, given that those were the options outlined in the staff report for the sake of 5%. I'll move that we roll that back to option 1.
Okay. And second by Councillor Kunst. Discussion on open the amendment. Sorry, just open the amendment. Anybody else? Does anybody want to speak on that? Councillor Whitmarsh.
Right. I don't have that in front of me here. Just for clarification, was it 25%? Is that what option 1 is?
Yeah, I believe so.
And it's a 1 year 25%, and then we'd look at it next year. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll call the question on the amendment J3. And it carries. The Councillor Richter opposed. Councillor Whitmarsh, did you wish to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to refer the delegation and the various things that were mentioned around people with disabilities, seniors, the lineups and access, talked about children's unlimited summer pass, some of those kinds of concepts, as well as there was some conversation around having days set aside for township residents and so on. I'd just like to refer that to staff to get some comments and feedback as to the feasibility and realistic possibility, and also what things might not work. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I may have been a little bit too hasty. I'll just ask Ms. Bauer. I think we could use that as a standalone motion, or would it be an amendment to this motion? Sorry? Standalone? Yeah. Okay. So
that's a new business.
Just park it for. Yeah, we'll do it right after this.
Okay.
But just park it for a second, and because now we have the motion as amended, so I want to clean that up and finish it.
Sorry.
No problem. That was my mistake. I should have waited a bit. Councillor Richter, on the motion as amended. Now we haven't voted on the motion as amended. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I still think we should be including talking to the Parks Advisory Committee on this, getting their ideas.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question on the motion as amended. And it carries. Councillor Richter opposed. So now, Councillor Whitmarsh, your motion is to refer the remarks to staff and also to the advice. Is it
Parks?
Parks.
Bring that up. I'll speak to it in a second.
Okay, sure. But we could lump it all into one.
I'd be happy to include that in the motion, that it goes both to staff and to the Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a seconder? Councillor Woodward seconds. Let's open up that amendment. So anybody want to speak to it? Push the button again. Councillor Woodward.
Yeah, so this came up at the Recreation, Culture, and Parks Advisory Committee meeting just this past week, but the minutes didn't reach you in time. So the goal there is the committee wants to maybe have the opportunity to review 3 issues that they identified as coming up from the public feedback: youth discount category, TOL residency discount category considerations, implications of, and long-term pricing for the water park area. And of course, can add some of the things that aren't, specifically, they're not going to review accessibility issues necessarily. They wanted to review higher level long-term policies around youth discounts, TOL residency discounts, and things like that. So those are the 3 that came up. And so if we can do a simultaneous referral of those 3, they wanted to look at those from September to December and come back with some thoughts by the end of the year at the completion of this year's work plan, and have those inform the fee considerations for 2020.
Okay, thank you. And I think this motion captures that.
Does it capture that?
Is that
Okay.
Mr. Backen? Because that will all go back for discussion.
Correct, Your Worship, especially with the minutes still coming forth.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
After this, I'd have one more question,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if you'd entertain it.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question on Councillor Whitmarsh's motion. And it carries unanimously. Okay, so Councillor Woodward.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise one more, because maybe we can look at these a little bit earlier, because again, we have one facility that opens up at a specific time of year, and now we're in a time crunch to try to deal with policy changes as requested by the public, and we don't have a lot of time now. So I wanted to check on the feasibility of even considering something for this year around a youth discount for the water park and Aldergrove pool, maybe through a pass system or some kind of an annual pass, or some kind of suggestions around how to potentially still do that this year, or whether it's too late.
I think on the fly might be difficult. I think the idea here is to get some feedback from both the committee and from staff on some of those options, Mr. Backen. And then it may be a little bit too late for this year, but I don't know if Mr. Backen.
That's correct, Your Worship. We'd be looking at introducing something midway through the season. If that's the desire, we certainly could do so, but it's going to make it very complicated because we have to bring forth some concepts, and then we have to do an amendment to the bylaw because it is a fees and charge bylaw, and then put those into place.
Yeah, so I won't move anything right now, and I can probably discuss that with you or maybe a couple other staff members potentially over the next month to see if that's even possible this year. But I think it's important to note that the way this fees and bylaw amendment procedure is done, it doesn't leave us a lot of time to necessarily make adjustments. Maybe that could be reconsidered for next year.
And I might add that I think this year our whole budgeting process was delayed because of the election and because of our priority sessions, and this would be part of that process, isn't it, Mr. Backen? So I would assume that next year, or for the 2020, it's going to be much earlier, so we'll have more time, so if that helps. Okay, so we're done with J3. Let's move to J4. Okay. Silence. Okay, so J4 is rezoning application number 100412 and development permit application 100749, Sightlines, Miller Corner, bylaw 5124. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Whitmarsh, seconder. Councillor Davis, discussion. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, just through your worship to staff, this had third reading more than 4 years ago. And so I'm just wondering what's happened in the 4 years. What's the reason for the 4 years? I remember this one quite vividly and excited about it, and then 4 years has passed and nothing. And so I'm just wondering sort of what the delay or why we're here at that time.
Sevi?
Thank you, Your Worship. As the clerk's note references, Your Worship, there were a couple of reasons. The primary one being change of ownership, and then the secondary reason for the delay was to complete and undertake the servicing requirements, including obtaining the approval of the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure.
So the application as it was passed at third reading is the same today, other than maybe change of ownership, but nothing's changed really in the application itself?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Davis?
Thank you. Maybe a question through to Mr. Steffi. We, in the papers here, it doesn't show, we had an issue with a left turn, if you were heading south, left turn into the Milner Esso, and I don't see any proof here that it's still there. I forget exactly how we tagged it, or did we tag it? Or do you remember? It doesn't show the picture of a left turn lane. Right now, there's a left turn lane that you can come off of Glover and head south and turn left into Milner there.
Mr. Seffi?
Your Worship, I'm afraid I don't remember the details. What I can assure to Council is that all the conditions that were set by Council at time of third reading have been addressed. Now, whether that included any restrictions on left-turning movements or not, I cannot recall.
Okay, because if we can't recall it, because it really creates a hardship, because you can't, the one gas station is only a right-inny and a right-outy. So you can't, and then on Glover Road, there's a embankment that you can't turn left into it. So it's really limited. And I know I've probably written it down on my book, but I don't know if I could find it 4 years ago. Does anybody not remember that?
Yeah, but I don't recall.
And it was something to do with, wasn't highways, because it's on 216th. Well, I don't want to move along with this, but it just creates an undue fare.
Your Worship, I'm going by recollection. I think there was access, a right-in, right-out to this site, a right-in, right-out to the site to the north of it, and that left movements were governed by the intersection itself, so that if one wanted to actually pull into to the left to this from the opposite directions, it would have to make a left-hand turn. I think what Mr. Seffi is saying, though, whatever conditions Council made at the time were followed through upon. If that condition was imposed that you're suggesting it would be here, but if it wasn't, then you would be attempting to impose a condition at final reading, which is not the customary process.
Yeah, okay. Well, also, it was to do with the post office is on that side, and to get the mail, well, you'd have to, it was just horrible to get the mail. But with anyhow, so I guess we have to proceed with hoping that clause is in there, but, well, we put it in.
Whatever, as I've been saying, whatever Council had attached to the third reading have been completed.
Yeah, and, okay, now another question, is Council allowed to, were we allowed to do something? That might clarify it right there.
Third reading.
Are we allowed to tag something on a left-hand turn, or a left-hand turn there on 216th, or are we only to do with the project?
Traffic movements could be dealt with by way of a condition at third reading, because that would be within Council's jurisdiction. At final reading, all the conditions put in place ought to have been met. So if Council did authorize that, it was followed through upon.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I remember this one really well, too, because it was right at the very beginning of the last term in 2014. I did have a question through Your Worship to staff. There's a rendering, and it does indicate, I believe, a Tim Hortons there. So if I could just clarify that the reason that the parking lot is configured is the way that it is for queuing purposes for the Tim Hortons.
Mr. Seffi?
Sorry, I don't know what page that's on.
Your Worship, the layout is based on the need for safe movement and turning of vehicles on site, as well as exiting and entering the site.
So, Your Worship, perhaps to revisit, if there was a brand provided, it would be illustrative, but I think what the concept shows is a drive-through. So they think that the queuing distance there was set up pursuant to our bylaws requirements for a drive-through. Again, it may or may not be that particular brand, but it would be the potential for some form of drive-through.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, see no further discussion. I'll call the question on the bylaw. J4. Carries with Councillor Richter, Councillor Arneson opposed. If you could just note that Councillor Ferguson was absent for the vote. Okay, now I'm going to ask for a motion on the development permit. I have a motion. Davis moves it, second by Councillor Kunst. No discussion on the development permit. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? J4 on the development permit. And it carries Councillor Richter, Councillor Arneson opposed. And if you could note that Councillor Ferguson was absent. Thank you. Councillor Ferguson's back in. Now J5 is rezoning application number 100439, Tribune Developments, bylaw 5221. Just a note on the earlier agenda, bylaw 5222 was attached but has now been removed. We're only dealing with bylaw 5221. Mr. Backen, can you just a brief explanation on that?
That's because the conditions set out in 5222 have been met. That was a phased development agreement, and rather than having the agreement, the funds have been provided.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any discussion on J5? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Carries with Councillor Richter opposed. Move on to J6, rezoning application number 100437. This is Watt, bylaw 5228. I have a motion, please. Councillor Ferguson, second. Seconder, Councillor Whitmarsh. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question on J6. Carries with Councillor Richter opposed. Move to J7, rezoning application number 100438. This is 50-50-50 Development Corporation Cooner, bylaw 5223. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Whitmarsh, second by Councillor Kunz. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question on J7. Carries with Councillor Richter, Councillor Arneson opposed. Move to J8, rezoning application number 100464. This is Blau, Triple J Poultry, Seymour, bylaw 5289. Councillor Ferguson, seconder. Have a second. Councillor Whitmarsh. Discussion on J8. Seeing none, I'll call the question on J8. Carries Councillor Richter opposed. J9, we have official community plan amendment and rezoning application number 100150 and bylaws 5339, 5340, 5349. This is Vesta. Could I have a motion, please? Motion. Councillor Whitmarsh, second by Councillor Kunst. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question on J9. And it carries with Councillor Richter opposed. And I need a motion on the development permit on development permit application number 100854, 100870. Have a motion, please. Councillor Ferguson, second by Councillor Whitmarsh. Discussion on the development permit. Seeing none, I'm calling the question on J9 development permit. And that carries. Councillor Richter opposed. There you go. So now it's the mayor and council report.
There's two DPs, right? Two DPs?
Yes, Mayor Froze, there's two. There's a DP.
Oh, did I miss a DP?
And then there's another development permit after that one.
I had that. I did that.
For best out the.
On J9?
Yeah. First one is development permit number 100854, and then development permit 100870.
Need two motions. I didn't realize that. I thought I did in one. Okay. So second motion for development permit 100870. Councillor Ferguson moves it. Second, Councillor Whitmarsh. Any discussion? I'm calling the question on J9 second development permit. Okay, there we go. And it carries with Councillor Richter absent. If you can make a note. Thank you. All right, now we go to Mayor. I've got them all now? Excellent. There'll be a lot of signing to do tomorrow. Okay. All right, so we'll start with the mayor's report. So good evening, everyone. Certainly interesting meeting tonight with all the events we had at the beginning of the meeting, but there's also a few events that took place over the past couple of weeks I'd like to tell you about. On Friday and Saturday, April 6 and 7, I participated in the Langley Gymnastic Foundation's awards presentations, which are held at the Langley Events Centre. And again, it's fantastic to see all these youth, and they're from all over the region participating in a British Columbia Championship. And those little girls, they don't just run to the stage, they bounce to the stage and bounce up. It's amazing, the energy. On Saturday, April 6th, was also the 3rd annual Plates and Glasses event in the Fort Langley Community Hall, a really fun evening of food and entertainment that raised money for the new 15-bed Langley Hospice. On Sunday, April 7th, was a Vimy Memorial Service at the Cenotaph in Cloverdale. The Army Cadet League of BC and cadets from the Fraser Valley hosted the service in remembrance of the 102nd anniversary of one of Canada's most important battles in World War I. And there were about 200 cadets there. Again, seeing our youth out in action is very impressive. You can see the long line of cadets that marched into the plaza. On Tuesday, April 9th, the TransLink Mayor's Council held a media launch for its federal election platform, asking all federal parties, political parties, and Metro Vancouver voters to join us in making congestion an issue in this election. On Thursday, April 11th, I, along with Councillor Arneson and Councillor Richter, attended TransLink's first round of public engagement regarding the Surrey-Langley SkyTrain line, an event that was held in the city of Langley. 271 people attended the open house, and also you see in the bottom left there's an update on the 72nd Avenue project, which I know there was a question at last meeting how far along it was. Well, I drove by and it's open and took a picture of it. It sure took out that nasty hill and railway crossing challenge that we've had for years. So lots happening in our transportation field. On Thursday, April 11th, I attended the launch event for the 2019 Fort Langley Beer and Food Festival at the Trading Post Brewery. And this year's festival is shaping up to be another great success. And I think Councillor Arneson was there before me, and I met Councillor Whitmarsh there. I don't know who else was there, but certainly... Councillor Long, that's right. Councillor Long was there also. So another great festival that's happening again this summer in Fort Langley. On Friday, April 12th, there was the official opening of This is Kwantlen at the Fort Langley National Historic Site. This exhibit features portraits and biographies of members of the Kwantlen First Nation done by Langley Fine Arts School photography and writing students. And I really recommend you go see it. If you drive into Fort Langley, you'll see these portraits at various places throughout Fort Langley, and I think it's a great tribute that the students did that to honor our First Nations. So it was a great weekend for the Kwantlen First Nation when they came here, and we unveiled that, and then on Friday they're unveiling this and talking about it. Acting Mayor Whitmarsh attended the following events. On April the 4th, Township of Langley's annual volunteer appreciation event. I'd like to congratulate the award recipients and thank you all the volunteers, wonderful volunteers who make this such a great community. And great to see all the volunteers come out. And I was returning from a conference from Portland, so I couldn't be there, and Councillor Whitmarsh took on the duties as acting mayor and did a fine job from what I've heard. And I worked with Miss BC and Miss Canada, who's the co-MC. On April 5th, Trinity Western University Athletic Awards evening. On April 8th, St. Catherine's School visits. And April 10th, Langley Lodge Volunteer Appreciation. On Tuesday, April the 2nd, Councillors Kuntz and Woodward attended the Langley Memorial Hospital's construction kickoff event. Good to see that new emergency department is finally getting going. And on Wednesday, April 10th, Councillor Ferguson attended the Surrey Board of Trade International Business Roundtable. So upcoming events, we have Arbor Day on Sunday, April the 28th at Dale Ball Passive Park. The Langley Walk is coming up on Sunday, May 6th at Aldergrove Athletic Park, and that's a free event, open to everyone, and it's been going for how many years now? Does anybody remember? Ferguson, you should know. Quite a few. There you go. Yeah, it's been going for a long time, and so it's certainly worthwhile. So just a note, I went to Biocycle West Coast Conference on behalf of Metro Vancouver. It was in Portland, and it's all to do with composting and composting our green waste and our food waste. Very interesting, very informative. I learned an awful lot about composting and looking and being there with representatives from all over North America. I know that we are not alone in our challenge to reduce our footprint on the environment and trying to divert from the landfill. So a lot of good stuff was happening there. There's a Metro Vancouver Regional Planning meeting attended, Council Finance and Governance Committee Finance and Intergovernance, and Metro Water Committee, Metro Zero Waste Committee meetings. So it's been a full couple of weeks. And Councillor Richter attended the Metro Regional Parks Committee meeting, and Councillor Arneson attended the Metro Climate Action Committee meeting. And Councillor Ferguson was at the Metro Liquid Waste Committee meeting. And so we're a busy bunch of councillors. So with that, if the council has anything else to add, that's my report for this meeting. Thank you. So I'll go back to my agenda, and we have other business, and there's a bunch of other business. So I'm just going to clear the queue here and get started. So Councillor Woodward presented the following notice of motion. Councillor Woodward, you're on.
I just want to make sure everybody at council has the revised version that was distributed on the table. Substantially similar, it's just cleaned up a tad so that it can be divided if council wishes to do that. It's a pretty short one. Whereas the completion of the major road network in Willoughby is a critical public issue, and whereas reviewing how major roads are provided for is a strategic priority for Township of Langley Council, therefore be it resolved that staff be directed as soon as practical to A, complete an analysis, report, and presentation to Council reviewing the memo to Council dated April 8th, 2019, and the implications of adopting a new Willoughby Arterial Road completion amenity policy, and B, prepare a new Willoughby Arterial Road completion amenity policy in draft form for Council's consideration. I so move.
Thank you.
Just speak to that if I may.
Yes. Yeah, if Councillor Ferguson moves to division, is there a seconder to that? Councillor Richter, I'll just show of hands. All those in favour of division? Okay, that's approved. Councillor Woodward, you're still on.
I just want to speak to this. Been working on this for a while. It's an important issue for me and for Langley, and I know it's an important issue for Mayor and Council as well, and for the development community. It's a problem, and I believe we all recognize that it's a problem that needs to be looked at seriously to try to find a solution that may exist. We need to reform the system that has recreated 208 Street. We need to fix it. And we need to find a way to pay for it, and we don't have that currently. Development must pay for development, and I believe we all recognize that, including developers. We say this over and over, but we have to mean it as well. Development has created the problem, and development needs to solve it. We obviously can't carry on like this for how many more years it will carry on for. 10 to 20 is the current projection. Our residents deserve better than that. I've put together a plan to deal with the core problem that has been a problem since the beginning. Our current process and development cost charges program does not account for the land cost associated with the roads. We currently get that land and roads for free, provided for by the developer that owns the land as a condition of development approval. Makes sense and sounds good. It works generally. But here we are now, 27,500 new residents later. We have gaps on the network that haven't developed, and some with no prospect of development, such as on 208 Street or at the corner of 202A and 80th, and we have to deal with it. And an amenity policy makes sense to me, but there's probably some variance and some other ideas that get to the same issue. We have to do the same thing we've done for greenways, at least in theory. We don't punish or expect people with greenways to solely pay for them, where the long-term owners, speculators, or developers share the cost of these greenways. We don't say that if you have a greenway, too bad for you. Why not have the same with arterial roads? And that's the core basis of the proposal. With that amenity fund, we would have the funds to complete those gaps and deal with the land costs, not part of our current process. We would have a way to do it rather than dealing with the DCC program, which hasn't accounted for it, or property taxes or other revenue mechanisms that aren't development-based. And only where and when needed, not suggesting we run out and build a bunch of roads for development, but fill the gaps and have a way to do that. So we need a real solution, and I believe my plan offers one, and I really just want to get it sent to staff, get the numbers, review the implications, start the debate, and understand the possible solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson?
Oh, I'm up? Oh, thank you.
You're up.
The reason why I wanted division is the fact that, it's important that there's an idea that's been put forward to us, and it will be arterial road completion amenity policy, which means a fund for folks that own property that pay more money. And that's fine. I think everybody in the room perhaps agrees with that. I wanted to make sure that this motion actually says the staff is going to come back to us. It's not happening tonight. Just if anybody might be thinking it's happening tonight, it's not happening tonight. We're not fixing 208 tonight as much as I would like to see it fixed tonight. Nor are we paying any more money for it today. So it's complete the analysis report and report back to staff through a presentation. That's what's happening in this motion. So I think that's very, very important that we as a council are going to look at what works best for our community. As much as I'd like to go out with a shovel or rent an excavator and fix the road myself, and I don't think that's going to happen. As much as I feel I have the ability to do it, it's not going to happen. But so that's going to be coming back, and we're going to be looking at how that staff has looked at all the analysis report and presentation. And I've said the second part, which is not on the table yet, is we don't need the policy until we've had the analysis from staff. So I think we have to have the chicken before the egg, or egg before something has to come first. And that's where I'm at with this, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, thank you. We're talking about Part A, correct, at this point?
Well, both.
Both? Okay.
Then we'll vote on, so it's just easier that way.
Yeah, so I've read the proposal that Councillor Woodward has brought forward, and I have some concerns with it. I think that the idea of sharing the cost of the arterial roads in Willoughby it has some merit to it, but I'm wondering why we would share it, just through residents or property owners in Willoughby. Why not all of the township, for example? Some of the arterial roads are roads that all residents of the township use quite regularly. 200th Street, the new 216th interchange, a number of other ones that are going to be used regularly by all residents of the township of Langley as they go into Walnut Grove, provide freeway access, and so on. It's just a question I have. I also am concerned about what the cost might be for development in this, what that might be, and what, the cost, and how that might increase the cost of either cost of homes for residents purchasing them, or making it impossible for developers to actually make it work. And so I have some concerns with it. However, I am interested in seeing an analysis done. I think it would be really helpful to hear from staff exactly what are the implications of the proposal as Councillor Woodward has presented. What are the challenges that we face? What things are possible? What things would make it really difficult for us? And maybe through that, and maybe we'll get some feedback as well from the development community through staff as related to that. So I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting lots of good information and doing analysis. I think that's really helpful. And so I'd be supportive of Part A, to get a report and get some really good information that we can use to make a decision. I would not support Part B at this point. I think we need the information before we ask staff to actually create a policy. So I think that's putting the cart before the horse. I think we need to do A and have a good discussion and debate and around that topic, and then possibly think of B later, depending upon the analysis and report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Davis.
Yes, just short and sweet. I have no problems with Part A. Let's get Part A done, pound it apart, tear it apart, throw it up in the wind, and then let's get on with Part B. But for now, Part A would be perfect.
Thank you. Councillor Richter.
Well, if staff is going to go to all the trouble of completing an analysis, writing a report, making a presentation to council, why wouldn't they just take it one step further and give us a draft policy to review and consider at the same time? I think not doing B now is making more work for staff in the long run, so I'm supporting both of these.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I find it very helpful and a really creative, out-of-the-box proposal to look at what we all have considered and said publicly is a huge problem with no real solution on the horizon. I read this report, and in the lack of details, I understand going from an analysis could lead us to a better understanding through staff of what would be involved in that. My initial thought about it it was I wanted to consider, and as we heard tonight, there might be a variety of solutions. I agree that this is probably a worthwhile thing to consider. I would just like to bring up the fact that, I don't know that it's the best one, and to me, it's a challenge that the onus has now come to the political side of the table, I guess, to come up with a solution. Maybe it is supposed to be our job. But I feel challenged in the sense that, we've taken different policies that have led us up to now, and we've really painted ourselves in a challenging corner at this time. And so looking at something that's already a work in progress, I find completely challenging. One of the things I really liked, I'm not actually speaking to, I guess, the analysis report, but if we're going to do an analysis, I would like to know how this could be rolled out in Brookswood Fernridge, because to me, this is an ideal situation before we have neighborhood plans to look at the equity of putting this all across all the different neighborhoods with an assessment that if the community is going to grow, this is what seems fair and reasonable. I'm more challenged to look at the remaining properties in Willoughby and say, even though you're trying to do some offsets, that they, should have this levy attached to their particular property. So I think I'm going to support the analysis and probably be in the majority with the rest of the council for now, just to look at the numbers and see what that looks like. And I would challenge all of us who have said that we want to fix 208 to bring other things forward at the same time. We have about a month now to put our thinking caps on and look at all opportunities. One of the ones actually that I've considered, but I haven't been able to draft anything yet, is pre-zoning properties and giving an opportunity for those land developers to be able to utilize enhanced values for their property, and the township would get the benefit of having the easement, the roadway that they would require without having to pay out of pocket. Because I am reluctant to actually ask the taxpayers to pay for more development. Development should pay for itself, but I've seen other communities that have decided that they're in a similar situation. They've got aging infrastructure and a growing community, and they haven't figured out how to do it either. So they've added a small levy to their property taxes. So I don't know what the answer is, but I feel that it's worth an analysis report, and then we can review that and make a decision going forward from there.
Thank you. Councilor Wooders for a second time, so prior to, I'll put my 2 bits worth in, you can wrap it up. I'll be supporting A, not supporting B at this point. I have several concerns. We have a lot of, I guess, thoroughfares and roads in the Township of Langley that need fixing. 16th Avenue always comes to mind. We've been working on that. Our staff have been working on that for many years, and it's a couple $100 million project for the township that we find daunting. This one is a couple $100 million project. And certainly taxing the property owners with another amenity is one way of doing it. I definitely would want to hear from the development community prior to doing this. We kind of say, it's not really, the developers can afford it, but it does put a pressure on housing prices. It does put a pressure on getting communities completed. And, I'm always concerned about that. And, and I'm not sure if, are we going to do this all at once? So we have to borrow the money, then pay for it as development happens, and then the Township of Langley takes the risk. And I know the philosophy has always been that we let, as these developments occur, that they complete the road network. That takes the risk from the taxpayers and puts it on the developer. We don't pre-build large infrastructure, and then the economy turns sour and there's no more building. We're still making the payments. So that's a question I hope staff will come back with on how this will be funded. But looking at there's other areas that in the township, Glover Road is provincial, but certainly is a bottleneck. You back up quite a ways on the way to Fort Langley at peak times. Fraser Highway, we've been going through a process of widening Fraser Highway, and we're just past 232, heading east towards Aldergrove, and certainly that is one of our jobs or priorities that we're working on as the money comes in. So I'm interested to hear what staff have to say and the development community have to say on this. I want to be cautious because I don't want to burden our taxpayers with servicing debt before we get to the those fees coming in, and then on the other hand, levying another fee, increasing the price of housing that puts a tax on our future residents when they purchase those homes. So those are my concerns, but I'll certainly would like to hear from staff on A. So Councillor Woodward, let you have the last word, and we'll take it to vote.
Well, you can always have the last word, Mr. Mayor.
No, to you this time. I get my 2 bits.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's going to be great. I want to make sure, though, based on some of the council comments, that we include some of that content in the report. I think it's it'd be great to let everybody wrap their head around exactly what's occurring, which is not the same as another area-wide amenity, but that we're shifting the burden from a small number of developers to all of them. And so if you have somebody over here that has the arterial road, they have to give the land, that's a certain cost. Somebody else who's been avoiding the roads and laughing about it and buying up all the properties without arterial roads and having a good laugh about it. Other people have to stuck with these road burdens that we're now going to distribute and solve that problem. And, you know, I think it's important to note that if you're increasing the levy on someone who doesn't have that arterial road burden, you're decreasing it on somebody else. So I look forward to all the cost of housing on the interior roads dropping dramatically, apparently. And you know, I think that we keep hearing this, so I'd like to really include within this report the you know, analysis of housing costs. Apparently they're going to drop on the arterial roads now, and they're going to increase in other places. So I'd like to get an analysis of this. And I've been echoing this frustration that we've been, you know, this UDI propaganda around housing prices, and every small fee apparently raises housing prices. Market sets the price of housing regardless of the costs. And so I think, but it is important to note that we can't do this forever, and I understand that. And this is why I really wanted to go to staff. Part B I do support, because our amenity policies are 2 or 3 pages. This isn't some gargantuan policy document. I could draft it and send it over if that would help. I think that it really does, help to see the policy document in black and white versus an analysis, but that's just been my vote, and that's why it's there, and that's why I'll be supporting Section B. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call the question on the first part, and this is N1. That carries unanimously. And then on the second part, I'll call the question on the second part of N1. And that fails. So Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Whitmarsh, Councillor Kuntz, Mayor Froese, Councillor Arneson, Councillor Davis opposed. Okay, so now we go to Councillor Arneson. If you want to push, you have a notice of motion. Do you want to just push your button, and I'll get you back. There you go, Councillor Arneson, you're on.
Ladies and gentlemen, people in the audience, thank you very much for being here. I know some of you don't have an option because you're waiting for the public hearing, so I do apologize that we're running a bit late tonight. However, I sincerely want to thank the young people in particular who have come here tonight and expressly the request for me to act on their behalf. I feel sincerely that it was a privilege to be able to take whatever action I'm able to as an elected official and act on behalf of those who currently don't have a voice in local government or likely other levels of government where changes can be made. And so I just really want to say I applaud your actions. I applaud your being proactive. And I've had the opportunity within the last week or so to really be exposed to some very articulate, bright, and really, really engaged young people who are extremely interested in the climate of the direction that we're going and trying to advance different outcomes. So I'm just, it's rather long, the actual motion itself, and so I'm not going to go through that because anybody who's here could have access to it, reading it in our agenda, or else council, I'm assuming, has already read it. So I'm just going to actually speak to the motion itself. And so it's just about accelerating climate, sorry?
Yeah, do you want to move it?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm getting ahead of myself, thank you. Yes, I'd like to move the motion.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Richter seconds. Okay, so now you can speak to the motion.
Thank you. Thank you. I believe that climate change is the biggest moral and social challenge ever faced by the planet and our global citizens. So now we are very aware of all of the implications of what has happened since particularly the Industrial Revolution. So it seems in an unprecedented and unfortunate manner, we hear on the news rather regularly, that we have changes to glaciers, permafrost, ecosystems, heat waves, floods, wildfires, and other serious problems. This collective concern has helped to inform and request from other young people in particular forming climate strikes on behalf of their future and looking to change the world that they will inherit. Globally, the concept of a climate emergency has developed based on a slowly emerging consensus of leaders and other stakeholders and citizens who observe the seriousness and urgency as we continue to incrementally adopt policies designed to correct our activities. Currently, we are on a trajectory that will not meet those targets, but these are what are necessary in order to avert the worst outcomes. As was queried before, an emergency, in the sense that we usually consider it, has to do with protecting public health, safety, and limiting property damage. In a broader sense, this means that we are now charged with looking at everything that we know and taking these observations and taking them to another level, because our inaction has caused us to be where we are today. So we've referred to the IPCC Special Report on Global Warming, 1.5% Celsius. This is a number that has been predicted as the upper level of what we can have and not have too much climate instability, and it will help to stave off the worst of the problems that are predicted. We need to set ourselves, I believe, on a course of action that has been unprecedented for us. So we have the basis, I believe, when we talk about, well, what would these activities be? I believe the township has done a good job in starting us down this road. We have many policies, I won't go into them, but as was referenced earlier, they largely are as a result of corporate action. And I believe that the biggest challenge for us will be is to broaden the focus and scope of what we are doing to look at all our different departments. Tonight we will be talking about a tree bylaw. What does that have to do with global warming? Well, it has a lot to do with global warming, but we don't know if we don't have an accurate assessment of how many trees we have, to what degree it balances off our carbon footprint. These are the kinds of questions that we need to start asking in our community, because failing to do that would be like a household who said, I think I'll buy some groceries, had $100, and then suddenly you open your wallet and discover you only had $5. It doesn't look good at the till, and frankly, we have overspent in terms of our capital. We're actually stealing from the next generation, not just that generation, but other generations. And I see people nodding their heads. It's very difficult to be a person who's been so privileged in my life to live the kind of life that we've had and enjoyed, and at the same time now reach the tail end of my life in the knowledge that I have unconsciously, as the rest of us have, done something that's negatively impacting many future generations. So I take it as a personal responsibility myself to look at all opportunities to try and figure out how we can do something differently. Now, it could be the case that a carbon budget sounds like a novel concept to us. What does that mean? Well, actually, we have a lot of information about what it might mean, but more than anything, what it means is that we have to get some data. So the data is actually not that difficult to achieve. There are other communities who have gone about the business, and I have a big fat report from the city of Richmond, who for a variety of reasons took it upon themselves, starting quite a number of years ago, probably a decade, and likely because of their vulnerability, to make a determination about what they needed to do. And so they have broken down all of the different policies that they have and attributed numbers to them so that at any given time they can know where they're at in terms of being able to understand how they were doing relative to what is considered to be an appropriate or an okay number in terms of temperature rise. Some of the measures that they have are some things I think we'd all understand, and we probably would be very interested in implementing themselves if only we knew what they were, and perhaps they could be incentivized in our community. So I won't go into all of them. But I think it's most important, as a councillor, when I make decisions, that I have the necessary information to know. If I can choose between a policy that's going to be better for the climate and one that will be more adverse, and I can look at the cost difference, do a cost-benefit analysis, and make that kind of decision, I think that's responsible. I think that's good government, and I think that that is the direction that we should be going.
Okay, I have to get a motion to extend the meeting now.
Oh, sorry.
So,
yeah,
I think we could go on. We have another motion on the floor. So, no, if we can have a motion to extend 30 minutes.
I'm almost done.
Yeah, I know, but I need that motion.
Yeah.
Councillor Davis, second by Councillor Kuntz. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. So that extends the meeting 30 minutes. So if you just want to wrap it up, then we can.
Thank you, Worship. I feel more than anything, sitting at this table, that we have to have a view towards our own legacy. What is it that we are creating for the future? What foundation is it that we are generating for those who will come after us? So I think it's most important to look at the decisions that we have. And even if they are novel, and even if there's something we're not quite comfortable with, I think we have to grapple with something that, whether or not we recognize an emergency like this when we see it, I think we have to come to terms with the fact that, in fact, we're not doing enough. And the reason why we are discussing this is because ourselves and approximately, I actually have a number here, 288 councils across Canada representing 7 million people have now adopted a climate emergency declaration.
Thank you. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I'd like to amend the second paragraph by adding in after the words carbon budget with a target of net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Make that amendment.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Arneson seconds it. Discussion on the amendment?
Yeah, I just think we need to be more specific about what the target is here. And I think there's things that we can do locally, like promote more electrical vehicle charging stations, make it easier to build net zero homes, as the suggestion was made by the delegation, improve safety of bikeways so that more people will start biking. There's things that we can do locally that will make a difference, but we need to have a target that we're shooting for.
Okay, thank you. So that's been moved and seconded. My comment on that is I don't quite understand it. I think we need to have information from staff before we just pick numbers out of the air. Maybe it's not out of the air, but for me, I have no idea where it came from. So I'm not going to support it this time. I think we need further information, and I'm going to discuss it after we deal with this. Councillor Arneson on the amendment.
Well, I support the amendment, and further to your concern about not having enough information, I had considered that, and potentially what we need is to have a CPC meeting. I think at that time we can use the incredible expertise of our staff, who's very knowledgeable about this, and I think in the way that only they can do, it would be helpful for them to be able to give us a baseline understanding of what our current policies are and how they can be enhanced, because I've spoken to them and I know they can do that.
Thank you. So on the amendment, I'm going to call the question and do. And the amendment fails. On tie vote, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Whitmarsh, Councillor Kuntz, Councillor Mayor Froese. Opposed. Back to the main motion. Okay, what I would like to move now is that we refer all of this to our September 30th, I believe, Macintosh Strategic Planning session. And the reason I say that is that we have a strategic priorities chart, and this looks like a lot of work. I think it's good work, but it's not on this. And I think we made kind of an agreement amongst council that we would go through these items. And I know we're doing some work on them, like tree canopy protection is happening. I've got a development management process review on the afternoon agenda. we are working the major road funding model we just had a discussion on. We are taking these off. Now we're going to add something else. And I think we should have the discussion there, and then from that point move it on, so because we're burdening staff with a lot. I do want to say, definitely it's important. Is it an emergency? The Township of Langley has been leaders in Canada on some of the things we're doing. We may not have it all wrapped up in one little policy, but we have the Green Building Rebate Program, and that was a leadership thing where builders get a rebate when they on their building permit by building their buildings more sustainably. We're leaders in recycling and diversion. We have electric car charging stations throughout the township, and I'm sure we can get more, but I think we're early adopters of that. We've right-sized our fleet and got awards for that, so we don't drive big 3/4-ton pickup trucks when a smaller vehicle is needed in our fleet. We just had a motion on taking leadership in looking at 12-story wood frame buildings, which in our report from staff shows that there is a reduced GHG on the environment, and so we're taking leadership there. Water restriction bylaws to preserve our water in the dry seasons. That's just to name a few. So I see that we're doing a lot of things, and certainly we can do more, but I would like to move that this go on to a strategic priorities planning and then come back. So I would move that if there's a seconder. Councillor Whitmarsh seconds. So on the referral, any discussion? Councillor Richter?
Well, Canada is heating up at twice the rate of anywhere else in the world, so I guess from that perspective we do have an emergency. Certainly it's been well discussed on media over the last couple of weeks, I think, since that report came out. There are a lot of communities that are recognizing it, and I think us pretending like this doesn't exist and shuffling it off to a meeting in September when we could be starting to take action now is just not an acceptable approach. So I can't support sending it off till September.
Thank you. Councillor Woodward?
Yeah, I mean, I think could have referred it to a couple of places. I won't get into where it goes, but I think that does make sense. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, I read this and it seems like it's a big direction shift for the bureaucracy to start to price this out and make policies and understand, okay, so we want to achieve objective A. Well, when I think about achieving objective A, B, or C, I look at the policy that's going to be changed or drafted or created to achieve said policy. And I struggle to know what those policy changes are going to be in this to achieve this 1.5. What exactly are we going to tell people they have to do, what has to happen, and so on and so forth. So it could have gone to CPC to try to understand what policies you're actually talking about, as opposed to just 1.5 Celsius climate emergency. So I'm wondering if it's going to the workshop process, whether staff could come with this draft idea of what it's. So we're not just there to talk about maybe we're going to solve the climate change, but that we would have some concrete ideas of what this draft carbon budget is. We can actually get into some meat rather than just talk about solving climate change. And then now we're going to start a process now a year's gone by. So I'm wondering if we can do both. We can achieve both. They can go to workshop, but we can come with some information on what some of this draft budget might look like, whether that's possible or not.
I think staff can take that direction. We won't have that much time at that one meeting. Really, it's to get it on a work plan. And this isn't on a work plan. It's coming in mid-year. We have a work plan. It's a lot of work. It's important work. And, had we not, I mean, I'm impressed with what the township does. And if there are no initiatives on those few that I mentioned, yeah, that'd be an emergency. But I think we can put this on a work plan, get a little bit of information from staff, and then we can go forward. If council does choose to put this on a work plan, to go forward. So I think that's why I want to put it to because we have a lot of, we have asked staff to do a lot, and now we're asking them to do one more thing mid-year. So that's why I'm doing it. But I think we can get some information from staff. Is that correct, Mr. Background? Thank you. Councillor Arneson?
Thank you, Worship. Generally, I have quite a cooperative nature, but I would reinforce the idea of an emergency. I understand that we have a very big workload and that Council has put together a set of priorities. However, I did consider that in bringing this forward, and I guess the other alternative is to try and figure out when it's a better time. There is no better time to address an emergency than immediately, and so I don't find September to be satisfactory, so I won't won't be supporting that. But what I would say is I can try and be as helpful as possible. And there's a lot of information that's been generated about carbon budgets. It's not the kind of thing maybe you can articulate through a motion and a very brief council discussion more or less after 10 at night. However, I'm very committed to this process, and if it's incremental information or talking to staff, just trying to keep the conversation going, because I'm very concerned that if we just hold off until September, we'll have yet again another whole year to have to discuss this. Will it be our priority? Will it be our work plan? I mean, that I don't find that acceptable.
Councillor Ferguson?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of initiatives we can all take today or tomorrow. As you know, Mr. Mayor, I sit on the Liquid Waste Committee. There's a huge concern about what's being basically flushed down the toilet and polluting the environment and affecting our treatment plants, including all sorts of diversions to I guess causing problems within our system. There's a water waste that we have on every Canadians are probably one of the worst offenders for wasting water. There's energy initiatives for how much energy we use. There's how we can conserve energy and do other energy initiatives. There's the way we, as mentioned before, drive our vehicles or have an opportunity to purchase or use other types of transportation systems. There's a number of initiatives that we can involve. I know that's not necessarily the motion tonight, but there's so many things we can do to help this challenge that we have. And global warming is not going to go away. We all know that, but we all can play a part. Including just simple recycling or picking garbage off the street. I mean, there's so many things. We've got Cleanup Day coming on April 27th and Arbor Day on 28th, where we're planting trees for that very initiatives, and everybody can be involved in it. So whether it's the 30th or another time, yes, we can sit down, but there's something each and every one of us can do today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh? We should get this moving along pretty quick. Got a couple more
Yeah,
speakers.
I would just say that this is it's an important topic, but it hasn't been one of our priorities. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of effort that goes into this. It does change the way that the direction of staff on a lot of areas. I don't think we've had a conversation around that. We're doing a lot of things already that Mayor Froese outlined and others. I just don't see that this is the kind of emergency that we need to deal with right today. I've been hearing about climate change and that as an emergency for probably about 20 years. So I'm not suggesting that it's not getting worse and that we don't have to deal with it, but my definition of emergency might be different than some other people's. I don't think September means that we're not treating it as an emergency.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
Just briefly, Councillor Arneson, through the chair, a presentation at a future CPP meeting further to the 2020 budget. What did you like?
Right now, we're just on the referral to the.
No, I know,
yeah,
but
okay.
if it, in one of the therefores, you wanted to go to a presentation.
Having to do with the budget.
Yeah.
At a future CPP.
But it's, September 30th is the future too. But yeah, it is our environment, and all of a sudden you don't realize. We bang, it hits you. And anyhow, it's.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Woodward?
Yeah, I just want to add, Councillor Arneson, if there's somewhere else we could refer it that advances it, I'm open to it. We have a motion to refer it to a specific process. If there's another process, I feel like I've done a lot of my part in Fort Langley in regards to this issue. I believe in reducing emissions and saving energy and putting that money to work to make those things possible. But it's only going to come down to policies, and I don't know what the budget discussions are about, what we're presenting in regards to the budget. So you may just know so much more about this issue that you're taking things for granted to walk us through this, right? And so if there's some other place it can go that you feel is a process that can work, then I'm open to that. But right now, all I know is that we could send it to a council priority process, and once you have it on there, then it will get executed in terms of breaking down the policies. Right. It could happen very quickly, actually.
I guess this is the time frame.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to call the question on the referral. And two. Referral carries with Councillor Richter, Councillor Arneson opposed. And so now we move on to clear the queue, hang on. And so Councillor Richter, you have a notice of motion. If you want to push your button, I'll put you on. Okay, Councillor Richter, and...
Yeah, no, mine's equally as long as Councillor Arneson, so I'm just going to move it.
Okay, so prior to taking a second, I know I chatted with you a little bit. Motion's good, just to clean it up a little bit. And I discussed this with Mr. Backen a little bit. So I would say eliminate number 1, and then number 2 is bring forward a Township of Langley tree protection bylaw based on the City of Richmond's tree protection bylaw for first and second reading at a future meeting of council.
Mr. Mayor, can we just deal with the motion as it's written?
Okay, then I'm.
You can make your amendments to it.
Okay, I just thought this would save us a lot of time.
It's not cleaning it up. It's just making it muddier. It's been a long day. We've been here since noon.
You want to refer this to the next
meeting?
No,
I don't want to refer it.
Okay, you moved it. Is there a seconder? Second. Okay, it's been seconded by Councillor Arneson. So I will make an amendment, a bunch of amendments. First of all, because it's the way it's sitting here, it's complicated. So, eliminate number 1. Number 2 would be bring forward a Township of Langley tree protection bylaw based on the City of Richmond's tree protection bylaw for first and second reading at a future meeting of council. B, hold a public hearing prior to third reading on the proposed Township of Langley tree protection bylaw. And C, bring forward third and final reading of the proposed Township of Langley tree protection bylaw at a future meeting, which generally follows the other. And then on number 3, changing the words in the second last line there from Township of Langley staff prior to the completion to take out prior to the completion, put in the word concurrent on their advisory work. And the number 4, that appointed 8 to 12 month maximum tree protection council advisory committee or council or mayor's standing committee, so we can discuss it later. And this would happen after the summer break with broad-based representation of the entire township to review the tree protection bylaw and subsequent 2019-2020 tree canopy protection standard. So with those changes, that's my amendment, just to clean it up a little bit and put in some language. Do I have a seconder for those amendments? Councillor Kunst, I'll open up the amendment. I think it's still that still has the spirit of the bylaw. It gets it moving. It's just generally we don't prescribe to council, but I would assume that this would be coming because we have to give staff some time to prepare this. But I'm assuming, Mr. Backen, that this could come to the next meeting, which is a month away. What would be your thoughts on that?
That's correct, Your Worship. Based on the direction using effectively the City of Richmond's bylaw with some altered language, I think that could be brought forth for the next meeting of council.
Thank you. Councillor Richter?
I'd like to move division on your revision because, it's not like I can't write a notice of motion that's clear and concise. I think I've written a notice of motion here that's clear and concise. I don't understand why we have to eliminate number 1. I don't understand why we're taking the dates out of number 2. I can live with the concurrent part of number 3, and putting a standing committee together in number 4 completely changes the intent of number 4 because it limits the size of the committee. So I move division on your items.
Is there a seconder on division? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Woodward? On any part, and we'll just go through each
part.
one.
I'm not even sure what it looks like anymore.
Yeah, I know. Well, cleaned it up.
Yeah, we need like a real-time editing system or something, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so I just wanted to ask a procedural question. We'll get into some of the other ideas, I guess, in a moment here. But I wanted to ask about number 2 in its current written form, Mr. Backen. A public hearing is not required. Is that correct?
For a regulatory bylaw such as this, a public hearing is optional, not required.
Okay, so we could call it a public input opportunity and combine B and C?
You could do that traditionally, though, because of the complexity of these things. We have engaged in public hearing style meetings or public hearing formats. So it's really a question of whether you intend the format to be any different than a public hearing style format.
Yeah, because I think if it's not, can we create a statutory public hearing so that after the public hearing closes, submissions end? Because I'm a bit worried it's legally a public input opportunity, and then submissions just keep coming in and coming in and coming in, and we don't vote on it at the night that it's considered.
So my understanding is because of the language, and the language here, we're electing to treat this bylaw, because it is a use bylaw, as a use bylaw, not necessarily a regulatory bylaw. So it's really the intention of the language, and I believe it's intending to come across as a use bylaw. If we recast it as a regulatory bylaw, then we will not need to have a public hearing.
Okay, so my goal is that however this is structured, that the intent is carried through, that we want the public input, we want the submissions, and then time to consider it. But if it's not a legally public hearing, it's public input opportunity, those submissions could just keep coming, right? And the public hearing needs to draw a line in the sand on the public input if we're going to have a gap between that input and the vote. And I want to make sure that that's just direction to you, that however we need to word it, that's the structure I believe Councillor Rick was trying to get to. But I don't think it's legally a public hearing, right?
Well,
so however we achieve that.
We'll back up a little bit then. The council has the choice between classifying something of this nature as a land use bylaw or a regulatory bylaw. A regulatory bylaw is usually like setting rates or doing those things, which does not require a public hearing, but is instead going to be doing something such as a public information session, if at all. The land use bylaw does require a public hearing. I understand this is being cast as a land use bylaw by some of the structure that we're using because it's going to be tree protection. Not knowing exactly what the Richmond bylaw says, I'm going to assume that it can be stretched that far. So because of the language being used, I'm classifying this as a land use bylaw that has a public hearing with, after the public hearing closes, no further submissions.
Okay, thank you.
Whitmarsh?
Yeah, just I guess a question on, again, process here. We are looking at basing a tree bylaw on the Richmond tree bylaw, and I have a couple of amendments to the Richmond tree bylaws, amendments I'd like to see on in the one for us, and I'm wondering when the best time to do that now that we've gone to division.
Well, if this amendment passes, then we're still in the main motion as amended, and then that would be an appropriate time to make some further amendments. So we'll go through this amendment, and then if you wish to add some further amendments, you could. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
Just to clarify, Mayor Froese, you said take out number one?
Yeah, and I'm just adding, so I'm taking what it is in number one, I'm combining it and just putting it into two and just saying based on the City of Richmond's tree protection bylaw. So it says the
Okay,
same
so
thing.
the comments from Mr. Backham was if it could come back in 30 days,
That's right.
but if I understood you wanted to take it right out, so you
No,
don't really want to just lump it.
Just making it simpler, so.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Richter?
Okay, technically we've divided your amendment, so we should be voting on the first one, which is eliminating number one, because that was the first part of your change.
Right.
And the second part of your change is to change number two by adding in, bring forward a Township of Langley tree protection bylaw. I think you said for first and second.
Based on the City of Richmond's tree protection bylaw.
Yeah, based on the City of Richmond
for
first and second. Hold a public hearing at some future date and bring forward third and final at some future date, right?
Right.
Okay, so why aren't we taking your things one at a time?
Oh, we are.
Okay.
Just discussion, general discussion, so that we can be a little more efficient, and then we'll go through the division and vote on each one. So we don't have to just, so if there's any comments on any one of these, okay. Councillor Ferguson, and then we should
Well, yeah,
go to
I
vote.
think it won't hurt just to make some general comments. Okay, I think it's fair to say that the folks at this table want to see a tree bylaw. We want to see something happen. I mean, we also have looked at a number of different tree bylaws, both in Richmond and I believe Surrey and a few others, including our own Brookswood bylaw as well. And what we want to do is we want to see if we can come up with the best bylaw that suits our community, because we have a large community. We have, as Councillor Davis said, over 70% in the ALR. We have quite a bit of developed property already, and what's remaining, we want to see worked out, and also we want to be working with the business and development community for something that works that other communities have done. Richmond has been mentioned that seems to work, and if there's any chance in a shorter than longer period of dialogue that we can come up with something that I think we all agree upon without having a great big long discussion about, because we want to move forward with it anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, I'm going to start calling the question. So we'll start with the first point 1 to remove that. This is N3, so I've called the question to remove point 1. And that carries. The Councillor Richter, Councillor Arneson opposed. So point 2 is to add in the, based on, say, Richmond Tree Protection Bylaw, and as I think we said this a couple times. So it'll have a public hearing, it'll come to a future meeting, which sounds like staff can bring it to the next meeting, and then it'll go through its process. So I would call a question on that one, and 3. Well, we got to move this along. I think we'll come back to that. We got to move along. Okay, we'll call the question on point 2. Okay, carries unanimously. And then point 3 was just putting the word concurrent and taking out prior to the completion of their. So I will call the question on N3. Carries unanimously. And I'm quite happy to take out my suggestion on the standing committee. It is a motion that's been moved, but if there's unanimous consent, removing that, I'll remove it and we'll leave it as is. I don't see any opposition, so I'm going to call the question on part 4. So basically, it is. I withdrew my amendment,
So we're
just voting on what you see there.
So we're voting to approve 4 then?
Yeah.
Well, hold on, yeah.
Your worship, so you're going through the amendments, so there's no amendment to 4.
That's right, no amendment, you're right, thank you. So I've removed the amendment, thanks. I'm going to cancel that. So now it's the motion as amended is on the table. So Councillor Whitmarsh, did you wish to make? Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yes, I wanted to make 2 amendments based on what we read in the Richmond Tree Bylaw, and I generally quite like the Richmond Tree Bylaw. I think it's a good bylaw. It's probably one of the most simple of the ones we looked at, and yet I think adds a lot. However, there are 2 things that I'd like to suggest. One amendment that I'd like to make is that to change the size of tree that you can cut to 30 centimeters rather than 20. Richmond has it at 20. Most of the other bylaws are at 30, and I'd like to have Langley's be at 30.
And that's at one point, you mentioned it's.
Sorry. Yeah, I think it's measured at 1.4 meters from the ground.
Okay. So
is where they measure that.
Okay. That's number 1, and we'll do them both together.
And the second amendment that I'd like to add is a provision for residents to have the ability to remove 1 tree every 24 months for any reason, with a permit, no fee, and no required arborist report.
Okay, so on those 2, is there a seconder? I'll second. Second by Councillor Richter. So I'm going to open up the amendment. Any discussion on those amendments? Councillor Whitmarsh?
Well, just I think the first one's obvious. The second one for me is, I think that, I'm trying to balance out, of course, and it's the rights of property owners and the trees they own on their property with the importance of keeping trees and protection of trees and how we balance that. And there are times, and certainly, I live in Brookswood, so I live in the area where there's lots of trees. And there are times in which you might have a tree in your yard, and for whatever reason, it might just be that it's blocking sun from coming into your yard, and you'd like to have sun coming in your kitchen window and enjoy your kitchen in the wintertime. And this would allow once every 24 months, so it does prevent the concept of clear cutting, and I'm going to take everything down. Once every 24 months, for any reason, I can remove a tree without an arborist report, without having to pay the permit fee. I still have to get a permit because it needs to be registered and recognize that I'm taking one every 24 months. But it allows me that ability to do that. Other than that, any other trees, I'd have to get a permit. I'd probably have to have an arborist report, everything else that the Richmond policy would require. But this is just one every 24 months to give some rights to a property owner without having to justify it based on sickness or health or that it's falling onto my house. I just want to remove it. I don't like it. And once every 24 months.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're going to need another motion to extend. Let's go 15 minutes. So, well, we should get this wrapped up. Councillor Woodward, Councillor Davis seconds. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Richter on the amendments.
The second one's a bit of a tricky one, but I can understand where Councillor Whitmarsh is trying to go from the perspective of private property rights. My concern would be that this is the type of thing that could be perhaps abused going forward, but I'm content to give it a try and see what happens. I mean, if we've got everybody running around cutting down the biggest tree in their backyard every 24 years or every 24 months, we may have a problem in the long term, but maybe it won't be abused. So I'm able to live with it and try it out and see how it goes.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
I think it's a start. I think this advisory committee on number 4. Hey, you know what? I think it was on our priority, council priority. It's let's get it in. We can move it and amend it as we see fit in the future. But I think if everybody in the township, everybody cut one tree down every 24 months, there'd be a lot of people be killed. So I'm not worried about one every 24 months, because in 10 years there'd be, it's not. It absolutely slows down down the take them all out mentality.
Thank you.
So I'm going to support this.
All right. I'm going to call the question on the amendments. 3. Carries with Councillor Arneson opposed. Councillor Woodward?
Yeah, I would like to also make a potential amendment, actually like to move an amendment, not a potential amendment. One thing that I liked about the Surrey bylaw that doesn't exist in the Richmond bylaw is the species exclusion. So I don't think the intent is necessarily to save cottonwoods. So I think that it's important to at least have staff look at that in the draft bylaw, to amend the Richmond bylaw to include a species exclusion for cottonwood and alders, no permits required.
Or perhaps to maybe come back
with a potential list of species exclusion.
List.
I'm not going to list every tree. I think once the species exclusion list is in there and the format is in the bylaw, then we can look at which trees to add to it, but to at least have it in there initially for cottonwood and alder.
Yeah. Okay, so it's moved and seconded by Councillor Ferguson. See no discussion. I'm just going to... Oh, okay, sorry.
What about...
just push your button again. So it's an amendment. Councillor Davis.
Sorry, I'll be quick. We're going to put that in, but is there an environmental rule or does anything nest in it, or is it around nesting time, or is that going to take precedent?
No, I think staff will come back with some
advice
on that. Yeah.
Nesting areas are a separate and distinct issue, Your Worship, no matter what tree.
Yeah, that's right, and that's governed by Ministry of Environment, isn't it? So it's not governed by township. Great, thanks. Okay, I'm going to call the question on that amendment. And 3. Councillor Arneson opposed. It carries. So the main motion as amended. Councillor Davis, did you have anything?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, so the main motion as amended, I'm calling the question. And 3. Carries unanimously. Is there any other business?
Yeah, I got one small thing.
Okay.
Well,
and Mayor Froze, just also a reminder about the afternoon.
Yes, I know we have the afternoon to wrap up. So maybe...
I can defer.
Okay, I've got Councillor Richter on first, and then she pushed the button for you. So, other business?
Yes. I'd like council to, where did I put it? Just a second. Write a letter to Cabinet requesting that regulations be adopted as part of normal farm practice, so that cannabis production facilities must must put in place odor mitigation measures.
Okay, so this is a motion
To
to
write a
write to
letter.
cabinet or write to the Ministry of?
No, I think it's to cabinet.
Is it? Okay, Mr.
The-
Back.
Or the lieutenant and council.
Yeah, Mr. Backen, who this is to the provincial government, so which is the appropriate place to
I
direct?
understand it to be going to the provincial government through cabinet.
Okay.
It could go to a specific minister, but I understand the motion to be to the provincial
Okay.
government through cabinet.
Okay, so is there a seconder? Councillor Kuhn seconds. Discussion on that? I'm going to call the question. 4. Carries unanimously.
Okay, and I have one more thing. I would like to refer the portion of Jessica Yanev's delegation regarding the condition of sanitary product dispensers in township facilities to staff. I'm concerned with what she said about the condition of these, and
Okay, so
she
get a
mentioned a
report
couple
back.
of our pools.
Can we get a, is that a memo or direction to staff? Can we just do that, or direction? Okay, thank you.
Direction to staff?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they'll report back on that. Councillor Woodward, did you have something? Okay, so motion, any other business? Motion to terminate? Councillor
Termination.
Davis, second by Councillor Woodward. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Just for everyone's information, we've been running late all day. We did have the afternoon we have to complete or defer, so I'm going to go back to the afternoon. So, yeah.
Thank you, Blair. For
So
your
where did we end
amendments.
off?
I think that they'll-
Yeah,
Your worship, I believe it might be I-1.
I-1 is where we, so, okay, so just before we get going, I think Councillor Arneson is suggesting she'll move J1 when we get to it, and Councillor Woodward is suggesting he'll move J3. I think J2 is a simple letter again. We could, that would be fairly quick. And
Can I move J?
so, and J4 is just information, and J5 is quick. So I think we could deal with I1, and we'll just quickly go through the agenda. So, and what is I1? So,
Defer J3 to the next afternoon meeting, is that correct?
well, we'll do it as we move along. So we'll start with I1.
Yeah, I think we can just move it. No long
Councillor Woodward, you're on for.
I'll just dispense with the amazing long speech that I wrote. Just to get this through, I think everyone's had a good long couple of months to look at this policy. The policy is a small, very token rounding error increase on the CACs, which are already low. Were initially proposed to be much higher, and came in much lower last year. And I think this is an equitable change for downtown Aldergrove, revenue neutral to the other categories. Been thoroughly reviewed and summarized for staff. It ends up being an 11% category for downtown Aldergrove, an amenity fund that we need for lots of good stuff inside the Aldergrove core area plan, from shared parking facilities to pocket parks and a number of other things. And I think that it's really, really important that we get this done, especially in the context of the JANA proposal moving forward. So I'd like to move the original motion, which is here somewhere.
Needs to be moved and seconded? Yeah. Okay.
That we
Second by
adopt this
Council-
policy as the new community amenity contributions policy.
Second by Councillor Whitmarsh. I have a question for Mr.
All the drafts in red are to be adopted, yeah.
Mr. Backen, I have a question for you. This sounds great, and I'm just wondering if we shouldn't have a presentation from legal counsel to our council on some of the implications, because it is a bit of a change in what we've done in the past.
That presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr.
Certainly, if that's your desire, your worship, the policy is attached. So just to step back one moment, we understand the motion to be to adopt the policy as presented in attachment B. If there's to be a referral or a deferral, that's certainly in order. If council wishes, we can schedule that not only on this policy but other policies, but it's really the will of council.
And I also have one potential amendment based on some feedback that I've heard in the community and other places that may help with some of the council's concerns. That it's a potential at 5.4E, that the exemption for downtown Aldergrove would expire January 31st, 2024. So the intent there is that this is an incentive for a short period of time, 5 years, and of course the development is quite short, and that the exact wording would be to add at the amendment that in 5.4E, add at the end, comma, and have received third reading from council before July 31st, 2024. So the exemption for Aldergrove, I know, had some contentious comments on that, some thoughts that, that's really not the objective, is to subsidize development in Aldergrove indefinitely, but to provide a short-term concept for waiving those CSCs in the short term. And that sends a message to get things going. And I hope that addresses some feedback that I've received. And I'd like to make that amendment, Mr. Mayor, if that's possible.
Okay, is there a seconder? Yes. Second by Councillor Arneson. Discussion on the amendment. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Sorry, can you just repeat the amendment again? It went too fast for me.
Sorry about that. I'm trying to speed it up here. So amendment, that 5.4E currently has an exemption from CACs for downtown inside the core area plan area boundary. And at the end of 5.4E, add comma, and have received third reading from council before July 31st, 2024, which is 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussion, further discussion on the amendment? Okay, I'm going to call a question. This is I1. Carries with me opposed. Councillor Merfro's opposed. Main motion as amended. Councillor Whitmarsh, did you wish to speak to it?
I just had a question. Okay. Question to Your Worship through staff. Just the CACs, I'm hearing the comment that the CACs are lower than we expected or much lower than we thought they'd be. Is there just some comment on staff on what the CAC rates will be compared to maybe other communities or what we expect them to be? Just some kind of summary comment around that.
Thank you, Your Worship. The process that staff commenced a couple of years ago was fairly extensive. That included discussion and consultation with the development industry, as well as review of other municipalities' practices, as well as legal advice. And what we came up with was actually a list of community amenities that informed, if you will, the actual numbers that we came up with. So it is based on a list of amenities. It is not a random number. And as such, all I can say is that it reflects the construction costs as well as any land acquisition costs that are associated with those items. Beyond that, Your Worship, if Council was to adopt the amendments, I would request a bit of a clarification in terms of the existing policy that Council adopted July of last year with an implementation process to commence, or effective date, if you will, of July of this year. If Council was to adopt the amendments on the table right now, staff would seek and request some clarification as to how we are to implement the changes.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay. Councillor Woodward.
I just want to clarify through the staff, Mr. Sevi. I think that's important. I was under the understanding, reading this draft in the policy, that this change would not take place in the new grace period, which wouldn't be applicable to applications that achieved final adoption by the July of this year, and that the new grace period would kick in after that. Is that correct?
That's correct. What I meant, Your Worship, was if applications have not received final reading as of July of this year, then the old policy would apply. So I guess the request for clarification is the Council's intent that the revisions to the policy would become effective July of this year? Or is there some other plan that Council has in mind?
Yeah, so I think that's good to clarify. I think the way this is drafted, it looks that after we get past July, that the new grace period mechanism kicks in. Now, I think that for me, if there's some other council amendments, I think for me that's perfectly fine. You're looking at a $1,000 per single family house. You're $700 for an apartment. They're going for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. But if there's some concern around grace period, I think they would be open to delaying the grace period mechanism by maybe 6 months or some other option, not to not to sort of lose the baby with the bathwater here, so to speak. But for me, I'm comfortable with the way this would work. The new grace period would kick in after that. But if there's some other mechanism that council wants to slow down the adoption of this increase, I'm certainly open to that. Perhaps something like it can be, delayed by 6 months or something like that. But I think overall, I think it's such a small increase. I hope that's manageable. But if there's some mechanism there that we can keep the policy, but maybe address that concern if others are concerned about it. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any further discussion. I'm concerned. We just went through a thorough community amenity review, and now we're adding more on the list. And the other thing I'm concerned about is we're taking money from one area and putting it to another area. I think Aldergrove is going to do quite well. I don't think we need to start taking money from Willoughby and putting it into Aldergrove. So,
I
yeah.
had that in my speech.
Did you?
I did.
Shoot.
I addressed that exact point in my speech. Mr.
I know.
Mayor.
You can have that chance. So, anyways, it just seems that we're right on the heels of approving a CAC program. We're now changing it, and I'd like to see more time and review it in a timely process. Perhaps in a year or two, but not now. Councillor Woodward, did you wish to? I think you're still on. Just push your button. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, I'm sensitive to that. I think that's why the number's not higher. I think that if we, I think that we just passed it, and I think that we go through an election, and then there's a bunch of people that think, well, I just missed that by just a few months, and a small reform on a policy is not a revisit, it's not a redo, it's not throwing out all the previous commentary and good input and formulating an initial policy. The initial proposal that the open house that I went to prior to adoption had a significantly higher number than what was adopted, and we're still far below that. And so for me, we create a basket for downtown Aldergrove, which is in a different situation from the greenfield we're dealing with. We have an infill situation and unique renewal challenges there. And we can always come back in 5 years or 7 years and say, maybe Aldergrove is so amazing and it's got all this development, we can relook at it. But for now, I think we have some specific amenities that we need to find a funding source for that are in the Aldergrove core plan, and that we need to move forward with one of our core one of our core council initiatives this term, which is the Aldergrove core downtown. And I view this as it's a very small absolute number, and I don't think we're piling on fees and revisiting policies. I think it's a small tweak to help downtown Aldergrove. And I don't look at it like we're development community-wide is supporting infrastructure we need community-wide. I think we're one Langley, one township of Langley, and I think we get too caught up in this one area to another area.
Fair enough. So, Mr. Seffi, just to clarify, you did ask for some clarification on the phasing in. Could you just give us some advice?
Thank you, Your
move
Worship.
forward with this?
I'll try and articulate it a bit better. So right now, if council was to do nothing, Your Worship, the existing policy will come into effect July of this year. So my ask of council is, when do you wish the revisions to become effective?
Okay. So we want the revisions to come, so I've heard July 1st. Is it July 1st, or are we going to stagger this out to January?
I'm happy to defer to January 1st if that's, rather than lose the whole policy amendment. I think that, I'm sensitive to this concern. I don't want to just dismiss it. So I would be open to that, and I would view that as a great piece of feedback from council if we want to slow down the adoption of this by some number of months, but ultimately move forward with the policy.
So are you moving?
So we need a...
I'm not moving it, but if others do, I will support it. Thank you.
Your Worship.
Mr. Backen?
Before we just pick a date, the policy does have contained in paragraph 5.8 some provisions for a phase-in period. It starts with 0% for 3 months, the next 3 months 25%, and up 50, 75, and 100%. So just so we're clear then, as it would stand, is what Mr. Seffi said is our previous policy comes into effect July the 1st. The next iteration or the next increase would then come 3 months later, where this would begin the phase in, unless council gives us another start date, which could be January 1st of 2020.
Start date. I think that's so. That. Well, I haven't heard who moved it. Sorry, Councillor Ferguson, seconded by who? Councillor Richter. Okay, now it's on the table to start the phase in on January the 1st. Okay. Councillor Woodward?
I just want to clarify then, we would be transitioning to, I think, what I believe to be a more fair grace period structure, but we would be delaying the implementation of that grace period structure until January 1st. That's the intent of the amendment?
Yeah.
So we're going to stick with the idea that going forward, what I don't like what's happening, we see this, I thought tonight, well, why don't I move final adoption and delay them until September? Look at all the money we're going to make. So I think that, we have to be more fair with that by saying that just because you missed the July meeting, you have to pay CACs that are due in September from 0 to 100. I think we have a more equitable structure moving forward. I want to make sure that that's still in the policy where you graduate upward and that there isn't this big rush to get through from a 0 to 100, if that makes sense to some on council. I think this is a more fair, equitable structure. But if we're delaying moving towards 5.8, that's fine, but we eventually achieve 5.8. Is that the intent of the amendment?
Yeah.
Mr. Bracken, I just want to clarify.
I believe so. I think that the phase-in period for this portion of it, the revisions, begins January 1st of 2020, so it will be complete by the end of 2020.
That's great. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to call the question on that amendment. So I1. Carries unanimously. So now the motion is amended. Councillor Whitmarsh, do you have something
Nope,
to add?
I'm good.
Okay. So the motion is amended. I'm calling the question. Carries unanimously. So now we're going to move rapidly through this agenda so we can move on to public hearing. So J1, so I'm going to ask that J1 and J3 be moved to the next meeting. Can I have a motion? Councillor Davis, second by Councillor Arneson. Just a show of hands. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. You want to move J2 to the next? J2 is a letter, so I think we could deal with J2. So Councillor Kunst, the motion is there. I think if you want to move it. The only thing I would add is that the word cultivation licenses get changed to non-farm use applications relating to cannabis production because they don't provide cultivation licenses. So with that, would you move? Yes. Okay. Is there a seconder? Councillor Davis. Discussion on J2 with that revision. Councillor Kunst.
So this note of motion is in response to an email we received from Mr. Ryan Thomas, who represents approximately 80 members of the Glen Valley Neighborhood Coalition. After meeting with Mr. Thomas and hearing the lengths he's gone to voice his concerns about the potential cannabis cultivation in his neighborhood, how this will affect approximately 100 property owners, a drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility, also known as Wagner Hills, a winery, an equestrian facility, not to mention the Tom Blau Eco Forest, all within 1 kilometer of said marijuana grow operation. So as a municipality, we have little to say about what's permitted in the ALR, but feel it's important to add our voice along with other municipalities about the impact these operations have on the quality of life for our residents in our rural neighborhoods. So that's the reason for the notice of motion. Do I need to read it?
No,
Can we just?
No, it's good.
Okay.
It's been moved. It's on.
Okay.
Moved and seconded.
Thank you.
So, Councillor Ferguson?
Put it on the table, Mr. Mayor. I did want to say, and I might want to ask the staff, this is not a particular greenhouse operation that's being changed over, if I may. I might have to go through the chair of the staff. Is that not correct, if I may?
It's a new be a new building.
So they have not built a greenhouse yet. This is not an existing operation they're taking over. They're starting from scratch. So that's what causes the concern to Mr. Ryan Thomas and his neighbors, and I think most councillors have been there, is they want it looked at it as a separate item that's coming forward, and that we should be expressing our concerns because they've been, those folks in the cannabis industry have taken advantage over existing greenhouses and just walking in because they had the law on their side. This is different, so hopefully we at the township have some controls over monitoring, over bylaw, over construction, over building permits and the like. Thank you.
So just to be clear, if a farm in the agricultural land reserve builds a greenhouse on soil-based, it's a soil-based greenhouse or soil-based production, that's a farm use, not a non-farm use. If this operation wants to build a concrete base, then they have to apply for non-farm use. But on a farm use, which is allowed by the Agricultural Land Commission, we don't have that kind of control. So just to be clear, that's right. Well, if they do, then it's a non-farm use, yeah, and they have to apply to ALC for that. Okay, I'm going to call the question on J2. Carries unanimously. All right, so J3 has been moved over. J4 is just for information. There's no action required. Madam Clerk, is that correct? Just information. I know this is part of our work plan, and the the committee may be small, but it's going to be mighty. It's going to make sure that people in the community are heard, and we want to hear from a diverse amount of people from the community. Similar to what we did with the Public Engagement Committee, we went out and we got input and then made recommendations to council. So council is the final say on that. Just want to point that out. J5 is a motion to receive. Can I have a Councillor Davis, seconder? Councillor Kunst, all those. No, there's some. Councillor Richter, Councillor Woodward, did you have something?
Sorry, I just wanted to ask about J4. I had one question.
Sorry.
One question about J4.
Yeah, J4. Yeah, go ahead.
Who are you anticipating is number 4?
I haven't come to that yet.
Really? That seems written like it's for somebody specific.
No,
sure?
I haven't made a decision yet. No.
You sure about that?
Pretty sure.
All right.
I haven't made a decision. Well, yeah, I've got to put my mind to that, but I haven't. If you have, and hey, if council has some ideas, let me know. I'm happy to take your advice. Thanks, but I don't have anybody picked out yet. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, can you invite people to apply?
Yeah, certainly, but under the legislation, it states that the mayor must appoint. So I certainly can have suggestions, but it's me who appoints. So this is early days. I just wanted to get this on the table so we can get moving on it. And certainly would be, I'll work with staff on a process where people could put their names forward, but it's one of the very few powers the mayor has in British Columbia is to set up a committee. So, but I'll take that under advisement. Appreciate that. Thanks. Okay, I got to finish the J5. We kind of went back. So J5, we had a motion. So Councillor Davis moved it, and seconder, I forget who it was. Councillor Kunst. Okay.
Business, hold on.
Hang on, I'm not finished.
Okay.
So show of hands. We're just going to do show of hands on this one. All those in favor of receipt, opposed, carries unanimously.
Worship, just to comment why that's there. Yeah. It's because September 30th meeting will start at 8:30 in the morning.
That's right.
Yeah. So we're clear.
I think everybody read that.
Sorry, yeah. I object.
Okay. So one's opposed to the receipt. Okay. So other business.
I have one other business too.
Okay, Councillor Woodward.
I think I can squeeze this in. I just had a question on April 1st distribution regarding the Athenry development. I missed this for the last council meeting. I left it at home by mistake. I just wanted to ask a question through to staff. That's a number of years ago now, and I was curious why these development permits actually haven't expired and they would not have to come back.
Mr. Seffi.
Thank you, Your Worship. The bylaw provides for development permits expiring within 2 years unless substantially they have commenced. So in this particular case, work had substantially commenced. In fact, one of the buildings, as council is aware, has been completed, which means that the development permit is still valid.
Okay, that clears that up. Thank you very much. And I didn't know if we wanted to clarify this memo regarding the 216th corridor study and some of the confusion direction around this. I think my main issue with this is that when we funded the corridor study, the intent was the budget process for 2020, which is in the memo, but now we're seeing maybe it won't get done until next year, which means we could have funded something else with the money we put aside for the corridor study. So that's where the little bit of frustration is coming from, that if that had been more clear, we could have funded something else. So is there some way to clarify this direction and maybe reap some value from some study this year, or do you need something to clarify the direction? Because the memo seems to outline that there is two pieces of direction here.
Your Worship, I don't have the memo before me, but as I recall, there was this issue as to the corridor study, doing it prior to opening of the interchange or after opening of the interchange. The memo laid out the history of the matter. There was some discussion at council about continuing to do it prior, but there was the advice or the direction we interpreted from the chair was that it was to be done after. So that's why the memo was provided, to get some clarification. There is, I believe, money set aside for that. If the money is not used, it would just simply fall to surplus at the end of the year. Again, when I say money set aside, it's around $150,000 or $100,000 from a previous budget allocation.
Yeah, and so I think the current direction is that it will not be undertaken this year, that we are waiting for the 216th interchange to open.
That would be the last known direction we have, yes.
Okay, so the reason I hate to do this, I know it's late and everybody wants to get to the public hearing and go home, but I'm worried the next council meeting's not for a month, and then if we get this on the agenda and vote on it and have a discussion around it, is that too late to still do it this year?
No, it can still be done. It's just a matter of when it starts because the interchange will not be open by the next council meeting.
All right.
It's not due to open until
Okay,
October.
so I'll confer with staff regarding the process to get this on the agenda then. Thank you.
Thanks. Is there any other business? Motion to terminate?
Termination.
Council Davis, second. Councilor Kunst, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. That terminates the afternoon meeting.